Rebirth of the Hidden Mist Village in the Ninja World. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Rescue Team, Part 1. After leaving the meeting hall, before reaching home, Ryuzen instructed his confidant on the way, Junior Shinsuke, I want you to select 8 elites from the clan, as soon as possible, and then cooperate with the 2 people I borrowed from Meditarumi to form a 10-man team to set off, as soon as possible, deep into the enemy's hinterland, and make full preparations, in advance to rescue the old clan leader. Excuse me, sir, do you have any requirements for these 8 people? King asked seriously. Ryuzen thought for a while and said slowly, among these 8 people, there must be at least 2 jonins who master the rebellious armor and can give armor protection to their companions at any time. In addition, there must be 4 jonins who are good at using different ninjutsu to increase the diversity of the team's abilities and allow them to cope with a variety of difficult situations. The ability of the Taketori clan is relatively single, mainly physical skills, and this time the task of rescuing the old clan leader is arduous. He does not want any accidents, so he specifically asked to have ninjutsu type ninjas. As for the remaining 2 places, they must at least be at the level of jonins, and 2 clan members who have not awakened the corpse bone veins can be found to fill them. Ryuzen added again. In this way, together with the 2 special jonins he borrowed from Meditarumi, they formed a 10-man elite jonin rescue team. 10 elite jonins, plus the protection bonus of the rebellious armor, can come and go freely in the enemy's rear, as long as they are not surrounded by a large army. Okay, I'll take note. Does the lord have any other requests? Taketori Shinsuke asked again. Rescuing the old clan leader was too important, so he naturally did not dare to be careless and must make full preparations. That's it for now. The rest, wait until the personnel are gathered. Liz waved his hand and said, then I will go to gather the people now. Taketori Shinsuke bowed slightly and then used the instant body technique to disappear on the spot. Liz did not waste any more time and also strode back to the garrison of the Taketori clan and passed on the news of preparing for war along the way so that all the clan members were ready. Not long after he returned home, 2 jonin level Miss Ninjas, a man and a woman, came to his door. Meet the Taketori agent. The 2 greeted Rokuze at the same time. Yes. Rokuze nodded and tentatively confirmed. You 2 should be the ones sent by Master Terumi Medi to help, right? Yes. The 2 bowed together. Then, the male jonin introduced himself. I'm good at sealing techniques. I'm good at perception. The female jonin replied immediately. In addition, the master also asked us to bring you the list of the Taketori clan for this expedition. The male jonin took out a document from his pocket and handed it to Rokuze respectfully. Okay, I got it. Rokuze took the list and nodded. This expedition is different from the past, so the reformist high-level people drafted the list of recruits, instead of letting the people below arrange it freely, in order to prevent someone from deliberately retaining strength and filling in the numbers. Rokuze took a quick look and found that there were about 500 people on the list, which blocked his psychological bottom line. He did not transfer all the elite of the Taketori clan and barely left them with some defensive forces. However, as the leader of a clan, he also has his own plans, and it is impossible for him to follow Meditarumi's plan completely. Especially for those jonins who possess the rebellious armor, he is determined not to send all of them. Therefore, he will make some minor adjustments to the list of recruits. In general, this does not exceed his authority, and even if Meditarumi knows, she will not care too much. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke and several jonins of the same clan also came to the courtyard of Rokuze. Hello, sir. Several people bowed to Rokuze in unison. Compared with the politeness of the 2 jonins before, these fellow clansmen were more respectful. After all, Rokuze is their acting clan leader, and there is a sense of fellow clan, not an unrelated leader. Rokuze nodded, and then said to several people, since everyone is here, then I will explain your tasks in detail to everyone. But then, he briefly recounted the matter of the old clan leader falling into the hands of the Snow clan. The 2 jonins who were sent to help were fine. Although they were very surprised by the news, they soon regained their composure. After all, the old patriarch of the Taketori clan had no direct connection with them. However, the 8 jonins of the same clan, SYNOPSIS, were different. Upon hearing the news, their eyes turned red, and they immediately turned around and rushed out. Stop them. Seeing this, SYNOPSIS immediately gave an order. At this time, he didn't want anyone to act recklessly and cause trouble. Hearing this, the 6 Jonin guards and Taketori Shinsuke who were hiding around his residence immediately jumped out and surrounded the 8 people in the middle. What do you mean by this? Do you want to stop us from rescuing the old patriarch? The Jonins who were blocked were furious and took an attacking posture without thinking. Please calm down, Jonin. Listen to me, SYNOPSIS hurriedly reminded. Hearing this, although the Jonins were unwilling, they still forcibly resisted the urge to attack. Okay, if the agent can't give us a reasonable explanation, don't blame us for not giving face. The middle-aged Jonin in the lead looked at SYNOPSIS hatefully and said, in the past few years after the war, the old patriarch has been missing. At the beginning, no one paid much attention to it, but as time went on, it was inevitable that people would be suspicious. Many tribesmen had asked SYNOPSIS agent about the old patriarch's situation, but SYNOPSIS and several other high-ranking members of the tribe insisted that the old patriarch was in seclusion for further study. In addition, SYNOPSIS agent had managed the tribe in an orderly manner in recent years, so no one continued to investigate. Now that they suddenly heard the news that the old patriarch had fallen into the hands of the enemy, they were naturally anxious. If it weren't for the fact that SYNOPSIS agent had been quite effective in the governance of the tribe in recent years and had accumulated a lot of prestige, they would not have given him this face. Glancing at the anxious 8 clansmen, SYNOPSIS said earnestly, the reason why I told you this now is that I'm afraid that you will not be able to control your emotions and then act rashly and miss the big thing for nothing. And the facts prove that I was right to deliberately cover up the news. You are too impulsive. Hearing this, the 8 Jonins' faces suddenly changed, as if a basin of cold water was poured over their heads, and the anger that was just burning was extinguished for the most part. Although they were emotionally impulsive, they were not fools after all. Especially in the 3 years that SYNOPSIS governed the Taketori clan, he deliberately let them cultivate their character and restrain their temper. Although he failed to completely change their temperament, he also made their minds much more stable. At this moment, after being scolded by SYNOPSIS, they have realized their mistakes. Chapter 177 Rescue Team, Part 2. Sorry, SYNOPSIS, we were too impulsive. The middle-aged Jonin and the lead immediately admitted his mistake. The rest of the clan also lowered their heads. Very good. SYNOPSIS nodded and said with relief, although you are still as impulsive as in your previous life, at least you are not hopeless. Hearing this, several people felt embarrassed, and their faces felt as if they were burned by a red-hot iron, burning with pain. At this time, the middle-aged man who had calmed down seemed to have thought of something, and immediately asked tentatively, excuse me, sir, you deliberately called us together and told us the news that the old patriarch had fallen into the hands of the enemy. Are you going to send us to sneak behind enemy lines for rescue? Yes. SYNOPSIS gave an appreciative look and explained seriously, the reformists, conservatives, and neutrals are all ready to take this opportunity to wipe out the rebels. The energy of the rebels will inevitably be greatly tied up by the front line. It is also the best time for us to rescue the old patriarch. So, I deliberately called you together to form an elite team of 10 people, ready to go deep behind enemy lines to launch your rescue. However, if the rebels find that the war is not going well, they will definitely use the old patriarch to coerce us and find a way out outside the battlefield. Therefore, your action to rescue the old patriarch must be quick. Otherwise, it will be difficult to save people after they shift their attention to the old patriarch. Hearing this, the faces of the 8 clan members also became serious, and they secretly made up their minds to do their best to rescue the old clan leader before the enemy reacted. Then, SYNOPSIS took out a scroll that he had prepared long ago from his pocket and continued. This scroll contains the terrain information investigated by our intelligence personnel, as well as the personnel deployment to guard the old clan leader. With it, it should be much easier for you to sneak behind the enemy or rescue the old clan leader. As he said, he handed the scroll to the middle-aged Jonin. Resisting his excitement, he took the scroll and carefully put it in his pocket. The middle-aged Jonin asked again, "Excuse me, sir, is there anything else you need to tell us?" "Yes." Eliuze nodded and said, "Just in case, I deliberately borrowed a Jonin who is good at sealing techniques from Lady Terumi Mei to help. When you find the old clan leader, remember to check his body. If you find that the enemy has placed curse seals and other control methods on the old clan leader, you can use sealing techniques to temporarily suppress them and find another way to solve them when you come back." As he said that, he glanced at the male Jonin borrowed from Terumi Mei. "In addition, I also borrowed a sensory ninja from Lady Terumi Mei. She can help you control the situation at any time and avoid the enemy's tracking." He glanced at the female sensory Jonin again. With sensory ninjas paying attention to the surrounding situation in real time, it should be difficult for the rescue team to fall into a situation where they are surrounded by a large army. Oh, and don't forget to put on our armor of rebellion. With it, as long as you don't commit suicide on purpose, you should be able to come back alive. He reminded again. Hearing this, 2 of the 8 Jonin who had mastered this technique immediately patted their chests. "Don't worry, sir, we will never forget this. In the past few years, their armor of rebellion has been tested by countless people and has been recognized by all the tribe members, becoming the most popular technique in the tribe. Occasionally, even outsiders come to request to be given armor. Of course, it is not free, and many of the tribe members have made a lot of money from it. It's just that, because of the solidification characteristics of the armor, plus it is a physical object made of bone, it does not need chakra to maintain, and can last for a long time. Many tribe members are worried that this will lead to the outflow of armor and benefit others. However, Liuz told them that there is no need to worry at all, because the armor is directly molded on the human body through the technique. When they completed the evolution of the armor technique, they deliberately omitted the structures designed for wearing the armor. This also means that once many armor parts are put on, they cannot be taken off by normal means. If you want to take them off, you must destroy them violently. Unless someone wants to wear that set of armor forever, those armors are disposable items for ordinary people. Except for the Taketori clan who can freely control the changes in their bones, others cannot use these armors a second time. However, although Eliuze can freely transform and take off the armor by controlling the deformation of bones, he does not have the ability to restore the changed bone armor, which will inevitably affect the performance of the armor. The only ones who can really put on and take off the armor perfectly are those Jonin who have mastered the rebellious armor. "Excuse me, sir, do you have anything else to tell me?" the middle-aged Jonin asked again. Eliuze glanced at him and hesitated. Seeing this, the middle-aged Jonin immediately patted his chest and assured, "Don't worry, sir. No matter how difficult it is, I will do my best to overcome it." "Okay. Come with me. I have something to say to you alone." Eliuze waved his hand and then walked towards another side room in the courtyard. Hearing this, the middle-aged Jonin immediately followed with a serious face. Taketori Shinsuke, as a confidant, also wanted to follow, but gave up after thinking about it, because he clearly heard that Eliuze said he wanted to talk to the Jonin alone. The more so, the more curious he was about what he needed to explain alone. Soon, Eliuze and the middle-aged Jonin entered the side room one after another, because there was no light in the room. As the small door was closed, the room, which was not very bright, suddenly became extremely dim. Both sides could not even see each other's faces clearly, and could only see a rough figure. "This Jonin, how should I call you?" Eliuze asked softly. "Sir, just call me Fujigang," the middle-aged Jonin replied respectfully. "Yes." Eliuze nodded and continued to ask, "Excuse me, Fujigang Jonin, if this rescue operation fails, do you know what to do?" "Failure? That's impossible. With our strength, and the fact that you are so well prepared, there is absolutely no possibility of failure." Fujigang shook his head without thinking. "But there is always a chance. No one knows what will happen in the future. So, we must be prepared for both situations," Eliuze said earnestly. This. Fujigang was speechless for a moment, and didn't know how to refute. After a moment of silence, he looked at Ryuze and asked seriously, "Since you asked this, I think you should have a plan. Please teach me, what if the rescue fails?" However, what responded to him was a completely unexpected answer. "I want you to kill the old clan leader." Chapter 178 Secret Commission. What? Taketori Fujitsu was shocked, as if struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. After an unknown amount of time, he finally came to his senses and asked in disbelief, "Sir, do you know what you are talking about?" "Of course I know what I'm talking about." Staring closely at the pair of terrified eyes, Ryuze said again solemnly, "If the rescue fails, I want you to kill the old patriarch." "No, this is not possible. I refuse." Fujitsu denied the task without hesitation and took 2 steps back, posing a defensive posture, and said, "Although you are our acting patriarch, neither I nor other members of the tribe will allow you to do such a treasonous thing. Killing the old patriarch is tantamount to rebellion, and no one in the entire Taketori clan will support it. I know this is very rebellious, but this is the last resort." Ryuze shook his head, then sat cross-legged on the ground, and asked calmly, "Fujigang Jonin, do you know what the consequences will be if the rescue fails?" Seeing that he did not force him further, Fujigang relaxed his vigilance a little, thought for a while and replied, "It's nothing more than using the old clan leader to force us to cooperate and work for the rebels. Actually, you can also figure out these things. But do you know what kind of changes this will bring?" Ryuze stared at the middle-aged man's eyes and continued, "The rebels' forces have only been able to hold on until now because of the secret support of Konoha and Kumogakure. If not for this, they would have been wiped out by the joint efforts of the other 3 parties. And our water country is isolated overseas, and the support from Konoha and Kumogakure is limited after all, and it is impossible for them to put in all their efforts. Therefore, the rebels are destined to be a sinking ship. If we cooperate with them, we can only be buried with that ship in the end." Hearing this, Fujitsu completely let down his guard, sat cross-legged opposite Ryuze, and snorted, "If you don't want to go along with them, forget it. But why did you still attack the old patriarch? Some things can't be solved by refusing as you think." Ryuze sighed softly and continued, "The old patriarch's prestige in the tribe is unmatched. So, the rebels will never kill the old patriarch unless they have no choice. Because if the old patriarch dies, they will lose their trump card to coerce us. But on the other hand, if the old patriarch is alive, the entire Taketori clan will be affected. At that time, they only need to push the old patriarch to the front line and show him on the battlefield of the 2 armies. What do you think will happen at that time?" Hearing this, Taketori Fujitsu's face changed immediately. If the old patriarch was really killed by the angry rebels, it would be fine. They would definitely be ready to take revenge. But if the other party deliberately kept the old patriarch and sent him to the front line, then the problem would be serious. Based on his understanding of the tribe members, some of them might be able to remain calm and wait for Ryuze to take over the command, but more people might go all out to rescue the old patriarch, or even turn against him under the coercion of the other party. By then, the entire Taketori clan will fall apart on the battlefield. In the end, no matter the outcome of this war, the Taketori clan will no longer have a foothold in the Water Kingdom, and it is even unknown whether they will be completely wiped out on the battlefield. This is no longer just a matter of rescuing the old patriarch, it is a matter of life and death for the entire Taketori clan. Realizing this, he couldn't help but clench his fists, and he didn't even notice the blood oozing out from his fingernails when his nails were inserted into the flesh. Seeing Fujigang's mood change, Ryuze struck while the iron was hot and said, "For the survival of the Taketori clan, we must make a choice. If the rescue fails, the old clan leader must be sacrificed to completely deprive the rebels of the possibility of coercing us. But this matter is too shocking. Once it is exposed, it will inevitably shock the entire clan and disperse the people. So, I will secretly summon you and entrust you with this important task." "But why me?" Fujigang raised his head and met the pair of terrifyingly calm eyes. He couldn't believe that when Ryuze said something like killing the old clan leader, his heart was not touched at all, as if he was killing an irrelevant stranger. However, how could he know that Ryuze had never seen the old clan leader? since he traveled through time. His impression of the old clan leader was only the limited memory of the original owner of this body. Just ask, how could he have any feelings for such a person who existed in other people's memories? It is precisely because of this that Liuze would formulate such a cold remedial plan after the rescue failed. No reason, just because I fell in love with you at first sight. This is a choice of fate. Liuze said seriously, without any emotional fluctuations. However, in the eyes of Taketori Fujitsu, he seemed to have a hint of holiness stick on him, and the light of holiness stick emanated from his whole body. Since it is the choice of fate, I will obey it. Fujitsu clenched his hands, completely accepted his fate, and knelt in front of Liuze, saying with a low voice, "But I have a request. Please agree to it. Tell me. As long as I can do it, I will try my best to satisfy it." Liuze said with a sigh. Fujitsu paused and said with a slight tremor, "If this rescue operation fails, then I will never come back. You." Hearing this, Liuze seemed to understand something. Fujigang trembled and continued, "To commit treason is a crime of treason. Only blood can wash away sins. But I have a wife and 2 children at home. If I can't come back, their future life will definitely not be easy. Please take care of them." Although he understood the reason why Liuze killed the old patriarch, it did not mean that he could really accept it in his heart. If the old patriarch was really sacrificed, he could only die to apologize in order to eliminate the guilt in his heart. "Okay, I can promise you that, as long as I'm alive, I will definitely protect them." Liuze made a solemn promise. "Thank you, sir." Fujigang kowtowed hard to the ground. With the promise of this agent, he no longer had any worries in his heart and could devote himself to carrying out the treasonous mission. Of course, if he could successfully bring the old patriarch back, it would be even better and everyone would be happy. "Okay, get ready to go." Liuze waved his hand to send him off. "Yes, I'm leaving." Taketori Fujigang stood up, bowed again, opened the door and walked out. For some reason, when they saw him again, everyone outside felt a sense of determination. Chapter 179, The expedition begins. After the 10 members of the rescue team left, Liuze handed the list of recruits to Taketori Shinsuke and ordered him to send out the recruitment notice and adjust some of the people on the list, especially those senior ninjas who have mastered the rebellious armor. He had long ago made a rule that at any time, half of the clan must be left behind and not all of them can be sent out. In this way, in the intense dispatch and preparation, a night passed quickly. "Let's go." Looking at the many clan members gathered outside the ancestral hall, Liuze immediately led them out of the city. That was the gathering point of the large army. Just as he walked to the vicinity of the city gate, Liuze heard the noise coming from outside the city wall from afar. Many people have gathered outside. In addition, he also saw that many recruited mist ninjas were coming from all directions and passing through the city gate one after another. Liuze did not waste time and immediately led his clan members out of the city gate. At this time, many ninjas had gathered on the open space outside. Preliminary estimates show that there are at least more than 1,000 people. With the arrival of Liuze's ninjas from the Taketori clan, the number of people gathered increased sharply. Not only that, Liuze's management in the past few years has also begun to show results. Many reformist ninjas have gradually accepted the Taketori clan, which was once excluded. They quickly integrated into the assembly team and talked and laughed, no longer being completely isolated and ignored as before. Of course, compared with other mist ninjas, the Taketori clan is still the type that is not very likable, but not completely rejected. Liuze was helpless when he saw it, but there was no better way. He knew very well that the image of a clan in the hearts of others could not be shaped in a short period of time, and his group of clan members with bad personalities could not be corrected casually. He only hoped that the new generation of clan members in the future could shape a healthy personality under his deliberate guidance, no longer follow the old path of their predecessors, and refresh the inherent impression of the Taketori clan by outsiders through them. This is a long clan transformation plan that cannot be achieved overnight. Perhaps they need 2 generations, 3 generations, or even longer to become what Eliuser wants them to be, but after all, they have a goal and hope. No matter how much time it takes, it is worth it. After waiting for nearly half an hour, the ninja troops outside the city were almost gathered, reaching nearly 3,000 people, and Terumi Mei, the commander of the army, finally showed up. There was no gorgeous speech, no exciting encouragement. She just stood on the high platform and uttered 2 words softly. "Let's go." Although there were only 2 words, everyone felt Terumi Mei's unparalleled confidence and indestructible faith. Then, everyone was also full of confidence and rushed to the front line in a mighty manner. Or maybe they found out the movements of the reformists. The rebels were not only not timid, but took the lead in launching an attack. On the second day after Eliuser and his party set out, the air ninja troops appeared above them and bombarded the reformist troops on the ground with their superiority. Rest, rest, rest. With the sound of breaking through the air, countless bombs fell from the sky, like black rain, covering the ninja troops on the ground. Unfortunately, the raindrops were relatively large, each one was the size of a fist, and contained terrible lethality. Boom boom boom. At the moment, when the first bomb landed and exploded, the other bombs that landed also exploded, and bursts of fire bloomed, like golden lotus blooming on the ground. There were fog ninjas who were unable to dodge, and were hit by the impact of the explosion, and even stood directly at the center of the explosion. They were severely injured, and fell to the ground in an instant. There were even more unlucky ones, or those with poor physical fitness, who died on the spot without even a chance of rescue. Seeing this, Terumi was furious and immediately issued countermeasures. Those who are good at physical skills, be responsible for transferring the wounded, and cooperate with the medical ninjas to rescue everyone. Those who are good at ninjutsu, lock onto the air ninjas in the sky and launch a counterattack. If you can't reach the target, lock onto the bombs dropped from the sky and make sure to destroy them before they land. Because those air ninjas flew very high, they didn't suddenly dive down to attack until they were almost directly above them, so the perception type ninjas accompanying the army didn't notice it in advance. After dropping the bombs, those air ninjas didn't want to fight and directly took off again. Even ninjutsu type ninjas would find it difficult to hit them. Therefore, Terumi didn't really expect to be able to shoot them down, as long as they could withstand the bombs dropped from the sky. Hearing the command, the originally chaotic crowd immediately took action on the battlefield. In an instant, countless ninjutsu of different colors rose into the sky and collided with the falling bombs. Boom. The continuous explosions came again, but this time they sounded in the air and did not fall to the ground. Only a small part of the impact of the explosion was transmitted to the ground, and the lethality was extremely limited. Eliuser only felt a gust of strong wind pressing down from the top of his head, and even lifting his feet was a bit difficult. However, this wind pressure was far from enough to restrict his movements. He only calmed down a little, then steadied his heels, and continued to rush towards a wounded person not far away. When Eliuser was less than 2 meters away from the target, he suddenly noticed something strange above his head. Stop. A familiar sound of breaking through the air came from above his head. Looking up again, a fist-sized bomb was less than 5 meters away from him. Not good. Eliuser was secretly surprised, because the roar of the explosion on the entire battlefield greatly affected his hearing ability, which also made the bomb enter the range of 5 meters, so close to him, before he could detect it. If he retreated now, he could still barely avoid the core area of the explosion, but the wounded person on the ground was not so lucky. If he suffered another explosion injury at such a close distance, the other party would probably die on the spot. Thinking of this, Eliuser decided not to retreat a step and directly block the explosion of the bomb. Because, with his current ability to resist the impact of the bomb, it was actually not too dangerous. After all, the bone hardness he could make now had reached a very hard level, and was an excellent defensive material. Then, he raised his right hand, spread his 5 fingers, and aimed at the rapidly falling bomb from a distance, and silently mobilized the chakra to stimulate the ability of the corpse bone vein. In an instant, 7 or 8 bone buds broke out of the skin on his arm and grew rapidly, turning into bone spurs one after another, and extending towards the bomb. Seeing that the 7 or 8 bone spurs were like a birdcage covering the entire bomb, However, not only that, at the moment when the bone spurs covered the bomb, Lyuze silently controlled all the bone spurs to grow forked branches in the middle and quickly contracted inward, and the rapidly falling bomb was suddenly stopped. However, although the bomb was stopped, the explosion was also triggered in advance. Boom. In just a moment, a blazing red flame burst out from the middle of Lyuze's several bone spurs, and a powerful shockwave was also generated. Chapter 180, Armor Preparation. However, with Lyuze's bone spurs wrapped around it, 90% of the destructive power of the explosion was blocked, and the remaining 10% was not enough to pose a threat to him. When the fire died down, and the smoke dispersed, Lyuze's figure reappeared. The bone spurs he used to limit the bombs were intact, and there was not even a trace left on them. Although the bones he made now are not as good as those of his fellow ninjas, they are much harder than other common materials, even refined iron. Then, he quickly retracted the bone spurs, and helped the injured on the ground up. "Are you okay?" he asked hurriedly. Most of the explosion just now was blocked by the bone spurs, and the remaining ones were not a threat to him, but it was hard to say for the man on the ground, who was already injured. Cough cough cough. "No. It's okay." The man coughed twice, and said with a miserable smile. Seeing this, Lyuze did not dare to delay, and immediately helped him to walk under a big tree not far away. The attacks of the air ninjas in the sky have not stopped. Occasionally, there are sporadic bombs that are not blocked and fall, blooming red flowers on the ground. If they continue to stay where they are, they may be bombed several times. Soon, Lyuze helped the wounded under the big tree. A medical ninja rushed over and quickly used medical ninjutsu to treat the wounded. Lyuze did not stop, and turned back to the battlefield again, trying to search for the rest of the wounded. Unfortunately, only a few were seriously injured by the explosion. The rest of the people helped, and immediately transferred all the wounded on the ground. Naturally, there was no chance for Lyuze to continue to perform. At this time, seeing that the dense fog ninja troops on the ground were scattered and hidden in the dense jungle around them, only a part of the ninjutsu ninjas were still stationed in the open space, constantly using ninjutsu to intercept bombs and try to fight back. Seeing that there was no point in attacking, and their bombs had been almost consumed, the air ninjas in the sky immediately turned around and left. The mist ninjas on the ground were unwilling to leave them behind, but the sky ninjas were flying too high, completely beyond the attack range of their ninjutsu, and could not stop their opponents at all. They could only let the enemy make a scene, and then swagger away from the battlefield. Finally, after an inventory, hundreds of reformist troops were injured in the attack. The ninjas reacted quickly. When they were attacked, they instinctively chose to dodge. In addition, the bombs had limited lethality, so most of them only suffered some minor injuries. Only a dozen unlucky guys failed to escape the core area of the explosion in time, and were severely damaged. Although there were no casualties, the large army was attacked like this just after the expedition, and before they officially entered the front line to fight the enemy, which inevitably affected their mood. For a moment, the original full morale of the people was lost by more than half. At this time, Lyuze also summoned many tribesmen and said seriously, the air ninjas have the ability to fly, and they are extremely fast, and can come and go freely. I think they will continue to attack and harass us before we reach the front line. For safety reasons, I want everyone to start wearing armor now, so that they can be ready for emergencies at any time. But, there are so many of us. It is not enough to help everyone wear armor in a short time with just a few jonins, right? A young chunin immediately raised a question. The armor of rebellion is one of the top techniques in the tribe. Only jonins who have awakened the corpse vein can perform it, and it consumes a lot of chakra. Each time it is performed, it consumes more than 1/3 of the chakra of a jonin. In other words, even if a jonin performs the armor of rebellion twice in a row, he can no longer continue to perform it, and needs to rest to restore his own chakra. And there are nearly 500 tribesmen in this expedition, among which there are less than 50 jonins who can use the armor of rebellion. It is not a task that can be completed in a short time, to rely on these 50 jonins to give all tribesmen the armor of rebellion. I've already thought about this. Looking at the chunin who raised the question, Lyuze nodded and continued, both the jonin and chunin have a certain ability to protect themselves. Therefore, I'm most worried about the tribesmen who are only at the level of genin. So, I ask that the weakest tribesman in the tribe be given priority to wear armor. Then, use the time to reach the front line to slowly attach the rebellion armor to each tribe member from weak to strong. I think that by the time we reach the front line, all tribesmen should be able to complete the armor. This is a good idea. Everyone nodded after hearing this. The current war is not tense. It is difficult to pose a threat to the Jonin and Chunin by relying solely on the harassment of the Sky Ninja. Wearing armor in order from weak to strong can protect the weak and prevent the Jonin from being too tired. Now, I'll trouble all the Jonin to put armor on the tribesmen. Eliusa glanced at everyone present. Yes. The Jonin who mastered the armor of rebellion technique responded and then began to look for targets around and began to give them armor. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke also quickly formed a set of hand seals and then placed a hand with chakra on Eliusa's shoulder. Guessing the other party's purpose, Eliusa immediately frowned and said, "With my strength, the attack of the air ninja can't pose a threat at all. There is no need to put armor on me for the time being, right?" "No." Taketori Shinsuke shook his head and said firmly, "For us, the safety of the adults is the top priority. As for the other clansmen, they have to line up again." As he spoke, he had already used chakra to stimulate the growth of bone cells, causing bones to grow out of his palm. Corpse Fein armor of rebellion with his light shout, the bone attached to Eliusa's shoulder and quickly spread, forming a layer of bone armor. When the bone armor layer completely covered Eliusa, it began to transform rapidly into a set of angular gray-white full body armor. This extreme sense of security wrapped in armor makes people unable to stop every time they experience it. Eliusa couldn't help but sighed after moving his limbs and feeling the weight of the armor on his body. This sense of security is too strong and too easy to be addicted. If it weren't inconvenient in daily life, he would even want to wear it all the time and never take it off. "If you like it, I will give you a set of armor every day in the future," Taketori Shinsuke said with a smile. "No, no, no." Eliusa waved his hands repeatedly and said with a wry smile, "If you really wear it every day, it will be too painful. Even if I really have to wear armor, I hope to cultivate the armor of rebellion myself and create armor for myself to use. It's not a big deal to always ask others for help." He hopes to master this powerful power himself. Chapter 181 Teruma's Test. It shouldn't take too long. Taketori Shinsuke looked Eliusa up and down and said seriously, "Your adult is growing very fast. In another year or two, you should be able to officially enter the realm of Jonin. By then, you will naturally be able to master the rebellious armor." In fact, with the armor he gave him, Eliusa is now qualified to fight with Jonin. It's just that his personal fighting skills and experience are slightly inferior. Of course, more importantly, his body is still developing, and his chakra volume is far less than that of an adult Jonin. Therefore, even if he has the combat power of a Jonin, he is still limited by chakra and cannot practice the rebellious armor. 1 or 2 years is still quite long. Eliusa turned around and looked deeply at his confidant. For the pursuit of strength, no one would think that the time spent is too short. Naturally, the sooner you achieve it, the better. Only when you reach that goal can you move on to the next goal. Step by step, continue to move towards a higher level. Now that he is over 15 years old, his physical development is naturally far beyond what it was 3 years ago. Whether it is speed, strength, or reaction ability, they have all been greatly improved, and they are not far from adults. This is also the basis for him to fight with ordinary Jonin with the rebellious armor on his body. At this time, Terumi also noticed the grey-white armor that was constantly being produced by the Taketori clan, and walked over curiously. "Is this the rebellious armor that you led people to develop?" She looked at Eliusa and asked. In fact, in the past 2 years, she has also heard a lot about the rebellious armor, but because of her busy schedule, she has never seen it with her own eyes. Now, she finally saw the real thing. Yes, this is the rebellious armor, and its defensive ability should be comparable to the first stage of Uchiha Sunohu. Eliusa said proudly. "Oh, can I try it?" Terumi said with a bright look in her eyes. In the previous life, during the 5-cage conference, she also fought with Uchiha Sasuke and experienced that kind of powerful defensive skills. Now hearing Eliusa boasting, of course she wants to try it herself. Of course, no problem. Rokuze nodded and then signaled to his confidant beside him, Shinsuke, please make another set of armor and place it on the ground for Lady Terumi Medi to use as an experimental target. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded and then walked to the open space next to him. After quickly forming 42 hand seals, he concentrated his chakra in his palm. Corpse Vein, rebellious armor seeing that, a thick bone spur grew out from his palm, and then quickly became flat, like a red hot iron ingot being hammered flat, and turned into a bone piece. As the bone spur turned into a bone piece, the bone piece began to change its shape again, and countless scattered armor parts were shaped. When the change stopped, all the bone pieces had turned into a set of grey-white armor standing next to Taketori Shinsuke. My lord, everything is ready. After completing the task, Taketori Shinsuke immediately returned to Rokuze. Now, you can try it. Rokuze smiled and said to Medi. Okay. Medi Terumi nodded, and then walked over slowly. When she was about 3 meters away from the armor, she suddenly stopped. Dissolving escape. Dissolving monster's technique. After quickly forming a seal, she suddenly spit out a mouthful of milky white mucus, like a quilt blown by the wind, likely falling on the head of the armor. Zzzz. In just a moment, when the highly corrosive mucus came into contact with the armor, a sizzling sound came out immediately, accompanied by wisps of white smoke rising. Obviously, the armor was corroded and damaged by the mucus. However, compared with ordinary materials that would collapse at the touch of a finger, the armor actually stood firmly in the dissolving mucus without collapsing, and it was obvious that the corrosion effect was not as good as before. In other words, the armor was extremely resistant to the dissolving mucus. After waiting for nearly a minute, Medi Terumi slowly walked forward and quickly formed a seal. Release. With her soft shout, the milky white mucus covering the armor instantly decomposed, turning into free energy and dissipating into the air. At this time, the armor that was corroded by the mucus was completely revealed. It's really amazing. Looking at the corrosion marks on the armor, Terumi Medi exclaimed sincerely. She knew better than anyone how strong the corrosion of her own melting mucus was. Even if a kunai made of fine iron fell into it, it would be dissolved and decomposed in less than 10 seconds. But this set of bone armor, soaked in her melting mucus for nearly a minute, only left a layer of corrosion marks less than half an inch deep on the surface, and it would take a long time to completely corrode and penetrate the armor. Compared with what she had seen before, Uchiha Sasuke's first stage Susanoo was slightly stronger. After all, the first stage Susanoo could not last so long in her melting mucus. How about it? Do you want to try one too? Lyuze suggested with a smile. Me. Terumi thought for a moment and shook her head. Not for the time being. With my ability and the protection of my guards, I shouldn't be in any danger before I officially arrive at the front line. Besides, your armor is so hard that it must be uncomfortable to wear for a long time, and it will affect my daily activities. I think it's better to forget it. After all, she is not a physical ninja, so she is not used to wearing such armor for a long time. However, when we officially enter the battlefield, I will trouble you to get me a set of such armor to protect me. She added. The situation on the battlefield is ever changing, and no one can predict what will happen next. Relying solely on her own ability and guards cannot guarantee her own safety. Although she doesn't like this hard armor, she is still willing to add a bit of survival guarantee for herself. That's right. As if remembering something, Medi Terumi turned around and said, Taketori, since your rebel armor can be given to others and has such a powerful defensive effect, why not give a layer of armor to the other people in the army? Then you are making it too difficult for us. Lyuze shook his head and explained, rebel armor consumes a lot of chakra. Even our Jonin can only use it twice in a row when it is in full condition. In addition, there are not many Jonin in my clan who really master this move. It is really too difficult for us to give a layer of armor to so many people in the whole army. That's a pity. Medi Terumi couldn't help but sigh. If this powerful armor can be given to a mist ninja, then these 3000 mist ninjas will become elites who can fight 10 or even 100 at a time. Not to mention wiping out a small rebel force. It would not be a problem to kill conservatives and neutrals at the same time. Chapter 182 Midnight Surprise Attack. After examining the rebellious armor of the Taketori clan again, Medi Terumi returned to her own team with a hint of envy. After everyone had rested and recovered some morale, the reformists started their journey again. However, they were not the only ones who were unlucky. With their strong mobility, the air ninjas who cooperated with the rebels also attacked the large forces sent to the front by the conservatives and the neutrals. Like the reformists, facing the sudden air attack, the large forces of the two factions were caught off guard and were in a very embarrassing state. However, in addition to hitting the morale of the opponent, the sudden attack of the air ninjas also aroused the resentment of the three factions, who wished to eat them alive. Afterwards, under the occasional harassment of the air ninjas, the large forces of the three factions traveled hard on the road for 3 days and finally arrived at the junction with the rebel forces. The Taketori clan in Rokuze finally completed the coverage of the rebellious armor for all the clansmen. Everyone was covered in a layer of solid armor, like a group of iron puppets. The only problem was that the senior ninjas who mastered the rebellion armor were suffering. Whenever their chakra was almost restored, they began to give new armor to their tribesmen. Along the way, their chakra was almost restored to full. Pass the order down. The troops will camp on the spot and find out the enemy situation ahead and the movements of the other two factions. Meditarumi did not rush to launch an attack, but chose to camp and rest on the border steadily. They had been on a long expedition, and the troops were quite tired at the moment. Naturally, it was not suitable to launch an attack immediately, especially when the enemy situation ahead was not very clear. More importantly, they had to guard against the conservatives and neutrals. Although everyone agreed to take this opportunity to work together to eliminate the rebel forces, she was unwilling to entrust her own safety to the conscience of others. If there was a chance to kill them, she believed that the conservatives and neutrals would never show mercy. In this way, the group stopped to rest and waited for the intelligence ahead. However, after nightfall, the anxious voices of the guards broke the peace in the camp. Be careful, enemy attack, but before everyone could react, a powerful chakra wave fell into the camp. Boom. With a loud bang, dazzling flames burst out in the camp, and then a powerful impact spread, instantly collapsing more than a dozen tents. What's going on? Liuzen immediately rushed out of the tent and went outside to check the situation. But before he could stand firm, countless powerful chakra waves fell into the camp in the sky. Boom boom boom. In an instant, nearly half of the camp was engulfed in the flames caused by the explosion, and the powerful impact also spread. Liuzen didn't even react at all, and the whole person was blown away by the impact of the explosion. Fortunately, he was protected by the rebellious armor and was not directly hit by the explosion, so he didn't suffer any injuries. When the impact dissipated, his stunned head finally became much clearer. The chakra cannon of the air ninja, feeling the familiar destructive power, he immediately recognized the source of the attack and quickly got up from the ground. Be careful, that's the chakra cannon of the air ninja. Pay attention to intercept the next round of attacks, he warned loudly. Chakra cannons are extremely lethal and have a wide attack range. Just one round of volleys covered nearly half of the camp, and it is unknown how many casualties were caused. If they are allowed to continue to use firepower to cover the attack, I'm afraid there will be few people left in the entire camp. However, before the voice fell, more than 100 strong chakra fluctuations in the sky shot rapidly towards the camp. Also aware of the dangerous fluctuations in the sky, many ninjutsu type jonins immediately formed seals and cast spells to intercept the falling chakra bombardment. They had just suffered a round of chakra cannon covering attack, and at this moment, only they had the spare strength and reaction ability to deal with the enemy's offensive. Lightning style, lightning strike, water style, water dragon bullet, fire style, fire flame bullet. There are a total of 3,000 ninja troops. Even if the ninjutsu type mist ninjas only account for a small part, there are still more than 1,000. Among these more than 1,000 people, there are at least 400 or 500 jonins. When these 400 or 500 people launched ninjutsu at the same time, the sky above the entire camp was almost covered by the gorgeous ninjutsu light, illuminating the entire night, as if it were daytime. On the other hand, although the rebels had the support of the air ninjas, the chakra cannons of the air ninjas were not common goods that could be seen everywhere. Although there were not many in the past 2 years, they only brought out about 500 guns this time. If they were distributed and deployed on 3 lines of defense, there would be even fewer. This round of volleys only had more than 100 compressed energy bombs. Of course, although the number was not particularly large, combined with the terrible lethality of the chakra cannon, it should not be underestimated. If they were allowed to carry out firepower coverage, it would take only a few rounds of attacks to raise the entire camp to the ground. In an instant, the forces of both sides began to compete head-on in midair. In terms of the destructive power of the chakra cannon alone, the ninjutsu attack of a senior ninja was not enough to dissolve a chakra energy bomb. Fortunately, there were enough jonins on the reformist side. Hundreds of jonins attacked together and managed to block this round of chakra cannon fire without any danger. Boom. A violent explosion was triggered in the air, and the powerful impact spread to the ground, blowing the already broken tents on the ground all over the place. At this moment, a mist ninja came to Rokuze in a hurry. "Meet the Taketori agent. What's the matter?" Recognizing that it was the messenger next to Meditarumi, Rokuze frowned immediately. Obviously, there should be an order from Meditarumi. The messenger said anxiously, "Lord Meditarumi has ordered the Taketori agent to lead the first column of the Taketori clan to attack immediately and destroy the chakra cannons of those aerial ninjas as quickly as possible. I'll be the commander?" Hearing this order, Ryuze was a little surprised, because the large force of the reformists was divided into 3 columns. Each column had nearly 1,000 people. To command such a team, one must have extraordinary strength and prestige. In terms of prestige, as the leader of a clan, he naturally had enough, but unfortunately his strength was a little lacking, and it was difficult for him to overpower those jonin in the army. Logically speaking, it would not be his turn to command such a team anyway, but after a little thought, he understood the key. If you want to destroy the chakra cannons of the air ninjas, you must face the strong counterattack of those chakra cannons, which also means that the team that accepts the task needs to bear a great risk of casualties. But their Taketori clan has the rebellious armor, which can withstand the attacks of those chakra cannons and build a barrier for the teammates behind, allowing them to easily approach the opponent and then destroy the target to achieve the mission. I think that Meditarumi should have taken a fancy to this point, so she deliberately ordered him to take over the first column. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Counterattack. The Taketori clan is not easy to get along with. If an outsider assigns them to perform such a thankless task, they will definitely not be able to command them. But if Rokuze, who is the deputy of the Taketori, takes over as the commander, the result will naturally be different. With Rokuze's identity, it is naturally no problem for him to command the Taketori ninjas to form a human wall to cover the rear troops approaching the enemy's position. After understanding this, Rokuze nodded immediately. "Okay, I understand. Notify the first column and let everyone get closer to me." He immediately instructed his confidant around him. "Yes." Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then conveyed the order. Because of the previous round of artillery fire, the entire army had been dispersed, and the camp was in chaos. In order to destroy the enemy's chakra cannon, the ninjas of the first column needed to gather. Soon, as Taketori Shinsuke passed the message down, the mist ninjas who originally belonged to the first column quickly gathered towards Rokuze's position. Amid the rumbling explosion in the sky, Ryuze silently used chakra to amplify his voice, and said to everyone, "I believe everyone has heard about the appointment of Lady Terumi Mei. I also know that many of you must be very dissatisfied. But, here, I'm not in the mood, and I don't have time to slowly argue with you. I just want to destroy the chakra cannons of those air ninjas as soon as possible and solve the current dilemma. Now, those who don't want to listen to my command can stay, and the others will follow me." After saying that, he did not give people time to think, and immediately took the lead and rushed out of the camp in the direction where the chakra cannons were fired. As his direct commander, the Taketori clan naturally followed closely behind, without any hesitation at all. After hesitating for a while, the rest of the mist ninjas in the first column immediately followed, and only a few were left in the end. After all, now is not the time to fight for power and profit, and the overall situation must be given priority. As Lyuze led the first column out of the camp, the perception type ninjas on the rebel side also immediately noticed their movements. After all, a force of nearly 1,000 people is too large to not attract the attention of others. This is also the fundamental reason why the reformist troops were attacked by the air ninjas one after another on the way here and could not escape. There are too many people, and the air ninjas have the advantage of high altitude reconnaissance, so they can't escape at all. Report: a force of nearly 1,000 people from the reformist faction has left the camp and is rushing towards us. The sensory ninja responsible for investigating the situation immediately reported the situation. The commander immediately ordered, turn 50 chakra cannons to aim at them, and be sure to eliminate them before they reach our position. In addition, let those air ninjas fly over to harass them and delay their advance. The lethality of the air ninja chakra cannons is obvious to all, and using 50 chakra cannons for concentrated fire should be enough. Yes. The messenger next to him responded and immediately passed the order down. The 50 chakra cannons originally placed on the hilltop immediately turned around and then locked onto the position of Lyuze and others with the help of the sensory ninjas and fired a volley. Report: a high energy reaction has appeared in front. It should be the enemy's chakra cannons. At the moment, when the enemy fired, the sensory ninjas accompanying the first column immediately reminded Lyuze. However, before the voice fell, Lyuze and others who were in the front also sensed dozens of powerful auras shooting from afar. Stop them. Lyuze did not hesitate and immediately issued an order to the tribesmen wearing armor. Hearing this, nearly 100 bamboo ninjas wearing the rebellious armor suddenly accelerated and opened up a distance from the people behind. Seeing that the compressed energy bomb was about to fall, they immediately jumped up and greeted it with their flesh and blood. What? The mist ninjas behind were shocked. They had not experienced the earlier battle to expel the sky ninjas, and this was the first time they saw someone dare to directly resist such a terrifying energy bomb with their physical body. Boom boom boom. With loud noises, bright flashes illuminated the sky, and 50 compressed energy bombs were intercepted by many bamboo cutter ninjas with their physical bodies, detonated in midair in advance, and the powerful explosion impact also spread. However, because everyone was far away from the safe range, when the impact fell on them, there was not much power left, and they were easily blocked by everyone. When the explosion impact completely dissipated, the many bamboo cutter ninjas who resisted the bombardment also reappeared. Looking at their unscathed posture, the many mist ninjas behind were amazed. I have heard that the rebellion armor has extremely strong defense. I didn't expect that it could even withstand such an attack. It's unbelievable. Yes, it's too powerful. At the same time, the sensory ninjas on the rebel position in the distance also noticed this situation. Report to the Lord. There is a new situation. He immediately found the commander. What's going on? The commander looked serious. I found that they can actually use their physical bodies to withstand the bombardment of chakra cannons. The perception type ninja reported anxiously. At this time, many ninjas who had already prepared launched another round of volleys in the direction of Lyuze and others. The result was naturally the same as before, and was easily blocked by the ninjas of the bamboo clan. Unfortunately, because the distance was too far, the ninjas responsible for operating the cannons could not see the situation in the distance. Otherwise they would not have launched such a blind attack. What? Hearing this, the commander was shocked. Before coming here, he heard the reminder from Shening, the leader of the Sky Ninja, that there were mist ninjas on the reformist side who could rely on a set of battle armor to withstand their chakra cannon bombardment. At first, he thought that the Sky Ninja was exaggerating, but he didn't expect it to be true. Damn it. He cursed inwardly, and then ordered his men, order everyone to put away the chakra cannons, and prepare to retreat. Cancel this surprise attack plan. This time, they relied on the extremely lethal chakra cannon for their surprise attack at night, so they didn't bring too many ninja troops with them. But if the chakra cannon can be easily resisted by the enemy, it means that their firepower will find it difficult to suppress the opponent. And once the reformist troops rush up, they won't even have a chance to escape. In order to reduce losses, he had no choice but to retreat. However, as soon as his order was issued, Countless chakra auras rushed out of the dense forest not far away, locking onto the hill where they were and rushing over. After all, in order to ensure the attack of the chakra cannon, they were not too far away from the reformist camp. At the speed of the ninja, it was only a few minutes away. Quick, prepare to retreat. Seeing this situation, the commander couldn't help but exclaimed. At this time, Ryuze, who also sensed the fluctuations of the chakra cannon that was constantly fired from the hill, immediately issued an attack order. All ninjas from the Taketori clan headquarters, pay attention to resist the chakra bombardment. Then the rest of the taijutsu type ninjas will follow behind and charge, with the goal of breaking up the enemy positions, so that they can no longer bombard our camp from a distance. As for the ninjutsu type ninjas, they will stay at the back, using long range ninjutsu to cover and suppress the enemy's counterattack. Chapter 184, Assault on a Jonin. Yes. The Mist Ninjas responded, and automatically adjusted their positions, to prepare for the upcoming battle. On the hill, because of the commander's order to retreat, the air ninjas who were responsible for operating the chakra cannons had stopped firing, and were taking out the ceiling scrolls one by one, preparing to put the chakra cannons away again. Only another part of the air ninjas and ninjutsu type ninjas were using long range attacks to stop the enemy. However, without the powerful fire suppression of a chakra cannon, ordinary long-range attacks alone could not stop Ryuze's group. With the help of 500 armored bamboo ninjas, the group was unstoppable, like a sharp knife, and easily broke through the blockade of the rebels, and killed their positions. Kill. Ryuze locked onto a mist ninja, and rushed forward with an angry shout. The man was probably a jonin, and his reaction was very fast. He sensed that Ryuze's aura was only at the level of a chunin, and he didn't care too much, and immediately used a spell to meet the attack. Water style, iron cannonball. He took a deep breath, puffed up his chest, and then suddenly spit out a compressed water bullet. The water bullet swelled against the wind, and in a moment it became the size of a basin. Not only that, it was also very fast, so fast that Ryuze couldn't dodge it, and could only hold his breath, and choose to bear it. Bang! With a muffled sound, the compressed water bullet hit Ryuze, and a powerful force came with it. The whole person couldn't help but slide back, leaving 2 deep grooves on the ground. However, after sliding about 5 meters, he finally exhausted the impact force, and stood firmly on the ground again. However, seeing his unharmed appearance, the jonin's face suddenly changed, as if he had seen a ghost. What? It's hard to deal with me with this level of attack. As if he didn't see the surprise on the other party's face at all, Ryuze moved his arm, that was a little sore from the water bullet just now, and rushed towards his opponent again. Perhaps because he was too surprised, by the time the jonin reacted, Ryuze was less than 2 meters away from him, and it was too late for him to cast another spell. Not good. He couldn't help but panic. However, when he realized that he was afraid of Ryuze's attack because of his previous defeat, he couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. I'm a jonin. How can I be afraid of a mere chunin? He waved his right hand kune angrily and slashed it straight at his opponent. Ryuze didn't dodge. Wearing the rebellious armor, he didn't need to worry about this level of physical attack. Therefore, he silently gathered chakra in his right fist and smashed it at the opponent's heart. Ding. Because of the difference in body size between the two, the adult jonin's arm was longer. Before Ryuze's fist fell, the opponent's kune first hit his armor. The kune swept across the surface of the armor, and the sharp tip did not leave a trace on the armor. What? The jonin was surprised again. It was fine that the opponent's armor had strong defense, but he didn't expect that the physical defense was also so strong. However, the surprise on his face only lasted for a moment, and then it suddenly turned into a look of horror. Because, at the moment when his kune fell on the armor, Ryuze used the corpse bone vein to activate the bone armor on his fist to change, and suddenly a spike grew out. The entire set of armor was made of bone. After losing the control of the original owner, he could also use the corpse bone vein to control and utilize it. And it was with the help of the corpse bone vein to control the bone hyperplasia of this section of spikes that he smoothed the arm length difference between the two sides and pierced the opponent's heart in one fell swoop. Of course, if the opponent was not too surprised and lost his mind, and it was likely that he had little experience fighting against the Taketori clan, he would not have been able to succeed so easily. After all, this was a Jonin who was better than him in speed, strength, and reaction ability. He originally thought that he could only rely on this armor to fight with the enemy for a while, and he didn't expect to win. Such a victory really came too easily. At this time, as the vanguard led by the Taketori clan tore through the rebels' positions, the rest of the Mist Ninjas quickly followed. The whole battle also showed a one-sided trend. However, in just 3 minutes, the rebels on the entire position were wiped out, and only a few smart guys managed to escape. The whole battle started very suddenly, and ended very suddenly. These guys are too vulnerable. They are gone just like that. Taketori Shinsuke walked over, his face full of unsatisfied looks. He had just warmed up, and the battle was over. It's not that they are vulnerable, but our existence greatly limits their chakra cannons. Looking at a damaged chakra cannon not far away, Luz couldn't help but sigh. If we hadn't blocked those chakra cannons, I don't know how many casualties would have to be paid to rush here under such heavy firepower. He added again. Perhaps they were too confident in the chakra cannons of the air ninjas. The rebels' surprise attack force did not bring many people, only about 300. Facing Commander Rokuze's first column of nearly 1,000 people, there was a huge gap in numbers between the two sides, almost reaching the point of 3 to 1. With such a small number of people, it was natural that they could not withstand a round of attack from Commander Rokuze's first column. That's true. If we hadn't resisted the chakra cannons, I'm afraid the result would have been the same as the last time we wiped out the air ninjas at sea, and we would have been suppressed by their powerful firepower, and couldn't even raise our heads. Taketori Shinsuke nodded. The last time the air ninjas were wiped out, only 20 chakra cannons were enough to prevent everyone from moving forward. Now there are more chakra cannons here, and the result is needless to say. I'm afraid it's not certain whether we can break into the enemy's position. Okay, clean up the battlefield and get ready to go back. Without wasting any more time, Liuzen immediately issued another order. Not long after, they returned to the camp with their respective spoils. At this time, the camp had been cleaned up again. The bumpy ground that was originally bombed by the chakra cannon had been restored to a flat surface, and all the wounded had been properly settled. Only some barely visible bloodstains remained on the ground. Report to the Lord. The enemy has been completely wiped out, and the crisis has been temporarily resolved. Liuzen came to Meditarumi's tent to report the situation. So soon. Meditarumi was surprised. The war ended too quickly, which was completely beyond her expectations. What about the casualties? She asked curiously. Except for dozens of people who were slightly injured in close combat, there were no casualties. Liuzen reported again. Their numbers were too large, nearly 3 to 1. The enemy could only block the attack of one person, and then was killed by the others who caught up with them. The whole battle situation was almost collapsed at the touch of a button. The enemy was only concerned with escaping, and had a weak will to resist, so there were no casualties. Chapter 185, Saving People and Losing Land. Hiss. Upon hearing the news, Meditarumi couldn't help but take a breath. This was really incredible. She knew that with the Taketori clan as the vanguard to resist the bombardment, they could easily break through the rebels' firepower blockade and win the battle. But she never thought that this victory would be so perfect, with 0 casualties. Seeing this, Rokuze immediately recounted the situation on the battlefield and answered Meditarumi's doubts. I see. Meditarumi nodded after listening and finally understood everything. By the way, what about the camp? How are the casualties in the camp? Rokuze asked curiously. Because the first round of shelling was too sudden, they had no time to prepare, so they were hit hard, and the number of casualties was probably not low. Meditarumi shook her head and said, the chakra bombardment was too strong, and we were caught off guard. Most of the people were injured in the first round of bombardment. According to our preliminary statistics, the death toll is nearly 130, and more than 500 people were injured. So many? Although he was mentally prepared, Liuzen was still surprised. Just one round of bombardment killed more than 100 people, and injured more than 500 people. If they hadn't launched a defense in time, I'm afraid the number of casualties would have increased. It seems that we have to strengthen our vigilance in the future to prevent them from using this chakra cannon for a long-range surprise attack again. Ryuze couldn't help but sigh. If it was a normal battle, the ninja's ninjutsu attack would not reach this range at all. It was only a few meters, or even more than 10 meters away. I'm afraid that they would be discovered by the ninjas in charge of vigilance as soon as they started to prepare for the attack, and they would be informed and start defense in advance. But the chakra cannon is different. Its range is far beyond ninjutsu, which is hundreds of meters away, so it was not discovered in time by the vigilant Miss Ninja. Even if there are special sensory ninjas who discover the enemy, they will subconsciously ignore them because they are too far away and think they are not a threat. If they do not strengthen their vigilance and allow the enemy to attack 8 or 10 times, they may suffer heavy casualties before they officially fight with the rebels. Yes, I have ordered the sensory ninjas to strengthen their vigilance and immediately issue an alarm if they find an enemy entering the sensing range. Meditarumi nodded. As of now, although the range of the chakra cannon is quite far, it has not exceeded the sensing range of the sensory ninjas. As long as you pay attention to the movements of the enemies within the sensing range in time, you can still avoid the same disaster. Then, I will not disturb you to rest. After reporting, Ryuze said goodbye and left the big tent. However, this night is destined to be not peaceful. The rebels attacked not only the reformists, but also the conservatives and neutrals. However, the conservatives and neutrals do not have such strong armor as the Taketori clan to withstand the chakra bombardment. After suffering the first round of chakra cannon surprise attack, they also chose to split up and attack, trying to destroy the chakra cannon of the rebels. Unfortunately, facing the powerful firepower coverage, it was difficult for the mist ninjas to break through the firepower blockade, just like the situation when Ryuze and others first surrounded the sky ninjas. But in order to destroy those terrible chakra cannons as soon as possible, they could only choose to disperse and surround and rush in from all directions, hoping to disperse the firepower of the chakra cannons and increase the chance of rushing. In the end, after paying a huge price in casualties, they finally achieved their goal and solved this surprise attack. However, the morale of both teams suffered a huge blow, which was far more serious than the harassment and attack by the sky ninjas on the road before. At this moment, the commanders of the two teams couldn't help but retreat and wanted to withdraw from this battle plan. After all, the rebels have the support of Konoha and Kumogakure behind them, and now they have the full support of the sky ninjas. If they really want to wipe them out, they don't know how much it will cost, which is definitely not what they want to see. But when they thought that Konoha and Kumogakure were now being held back by the Ghost Legion, it was a great opportunity to wipe out the rebels, so they were reluctant to give up. Especially now that they had not officially fought against the rebel army. If they retreated, it would greatly affect the prestige of the top leaders and shake the rule of the bottom. As a last resort, they could only grit their teeth and continue to advance deep into the rebel territory. However, they were not mediocre. After suffering a loss, they immediately expanded the scope of alert to prevent the rebels from repeating the same trick again. Because of this, the rebels never succeeded in sneak attacks again. And facing the three armies approaching, the sneak attack was ineffective, and the rebels immediately withdrew their forces and did not waste any more energy to divide their troops to block. This is troublesome. Ryuze couldn't help but sighed heavily after taking down another small city without any effort. Lord Ryuze, what's the trouble? Didn't we occupy this city without spending a single soldier? A young fellow tribesman asked puzzledly. This is the 6th city we have easily occupied without fighting. Looking back at his young fellow tribesman, Ryuze said with a serious face, although we did not encounter any resistance, this does not mean that our enemies have disappeared. On the contrary, they have concentrated all their defense forces together to avoid being eaten away by us bit by bit. This also means that the next time we fight, the number of enemies we will encounter will be far beyond your imagination. The difficulty of defeating the enemy is also far beyond imagination. As the saying goes, if you lose people while keeping the land, you lose both the people and the land. If you lose the people while keeping the land, you gain both the people and the land. At the same time, facing the siege of the three forces of Kirigakure, if the rebels hold on to their defense without losing an inch of land, I'm afraid that before they can reach their ear nest, all their ninjas will be consumed in the defense of all the towns along the way. The rebel forces will inevitably perish. But if they give up their temporary land and concentrate all their ninjas to defend their base camp, facing such a force, it will not be so easy to swallow them, even if the three reformists join forces. Once the war situation is deadlocked, it will be disadvantageous to the other three parties. After all, the logistics supply lines of the three families were too long. If they waited until the war between the allied ninja forces and the Ghost Corps was over, and the three reformist families had not yet wiped out the rebel forces, they would inevitably face the strong intervention of Konoha and Kirigakure. By then, the land lost by the rebels could be taken back. It must be said that, although the choice of the rebels was cowardly, it was very useful. Well, that's really a big trouble. After hearing the explanation, the young fellow's face suddenly changed. Needless to say, facing a strong city guarded by the rebel forces, they must pay a huge price to break it. Chapter 186, Enemy at the Gate. In the following days, the reformists still did not encounter any decent resistance, and all the missed ninjas in the rebel territory seemed to have disappeared. Finally, on the 6th day after setting off, they arrived at the foot of Cape City, which was also the last stronghold of the rebel forces. TSK, 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 these guys are really crazy. Looking at the high city wall, Liuze couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. Cape City is already a top city, and city walls of this level are generally only about 10 meters high. Although it can't stop ninjas who can fly over walls and climb walls, the height of 10 meters is enough to play a certain defensive role. After all, it is not easy even for a ninja to climb such a city wall at once. The ninjas stationed on the city wall can easily block intruders from a high position. However, this group of rebels actually increased the height of the original city wall to about 15 meters, further increasing the difficulty for them to conquer. Not only that, Terumi Medi walked up, shook his head and said, "I have ordered sentient ninjas to investigate. Those guys also used earth escape ninjutsu to solidify the ground. Even if we want to dig holes from the ground to make a surprise attack, it's impossible." The city wall was too high for people to want to climb over, so she immediately thought of breaking through from the ground and asking people to investigate in advance. Unfortunately, the rebels were well prepared and did not leave any chance for them. That's really a headache. Liuze rubbed his temples. Whether it is a modern society of the previous life or the ninja world of today, there is not much difference in the methods of siege. Although ninjas are outstanding in terms of personal power, because they master the power of chakra, the basic methods of siege warfare are still those, which are nothing more than cooperating with the inside and the outside, and attacking and breaking through. Generally speaking, there is no particularly new or epoch-making progress. Immediately, Terumi Medi ordered to everyone, the entire army retreats and keeps a safe distance from Cape City. In particular, we must get out of the range of the chakra cannon, and then set up camp, to rest and wait for the arrival of the conservatives and neutrals. From this distance, she could already see the densely packed chakra cannons lined up on the city wall. If it were a forceful attack, even if the Taketori clan resisted the bombardment, they would probably suffer heavy losses. After all, in addition to those chakra cannons, there is also a huge ninja force deliberately preserved by the rebels in the city. Preliminary estimates put it at least around 10,000 people. Of course, the strength of the rebels alone cannot reach this level. However, it includes scattered forces such as wandering ninjas, rebel ninjas, and MT ninjas that they have absorbed in recent years, as well as a small number of hired ninjas from Konoha and Kirigakure. At this moment, the rebel force has turned into a monster, a cancer that combines all kinds of filth in the kingdom of water. For the sake of safety and to preserve her strength, Terumi Medi chose to be patient for the time being. Immediately, everyone retreated, far away from the range of the chakra cannon, and found a flat place to set up camp. At the same time, the rescue team responsible for rescuing the old patriarch Taketori, who had already sneaked into the Cape City, was troubled. The plan could not keep up with the changes. The rebels completely gave up resistance on the front line and directly reduced their strength to stick to the rear. This also made the entire city extremely heavily guarded, with almost no chance to strike. Even if they could forcibly rescue people in a short time, they had no chance of escaping from Cape City, because there are too many ninjas in the city, especially in the sky, where there are constant patrols, so taking action rashly can only lead to death. As a last resort, they could only choose to lurk and wait, and this wait has ended now. Winter, 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 winter. In a dark alley, a middle-aged man carefully looked around and knocked on the door of one of the houses with a strange rhythm. After a while, the door opened slightly, and then the man flew in, as if he was afraid of being noticed by others. "Why are you here?" The woman who just opened the door for him frowned and quickly closed the door and asked. She is one of the members of the rescue team arranged by Liu's. In order to rescue the old patriarch Taketori, he and others lurked in the city. After all, the 10 of them together were so eye-catching. I brought good news. The man raised his lips, sat down at a small table, grabbed the water bottle on the table, and poured himself a large cup. "What's the good news?" the woman asked curiously. The man filled a large glass of cold water and suppressed his excitement and said, "Master Liu's and the reformist army have arrived at the Cape City and will launch an attack soon." "That's great. In this way, our rescue plan can be implemented." The woman suddenly beamed with joy. Because the rebel army was hoarding, they did not dare to take action rashly, so they made some modifications to the original rescue plan. The general idea remains the same. Let's wait until the rebels start a war with the other 3 parties and their attention is greatly attracted to take action. However, this time they were not waiting for the front line to start fighting, but for the 3 reformist parties to start attacking the city. Once the siege begins, the city's defense and vigilance forces will inevitably relax a lot. Not only can they save people, but they can also take advantage of the melee from all directions to find a breakthrough in the city wall and escape. Especially when the reformists came to the city, they could get support as long as they escaped here. It was far more convenient than the original plan of escaping from the rebel rear to the front line. So, we will notify everyone separately next, so that everyone can be ready to take action at any time, the middle-aged man said seriously to his companions. For safety reasons, the 10 of them spread out and lurked, and only maintained partial contact. No one knew the location of everyone. Therefore, if they want to reconnect with other people, they must split up and find their companions one by one. Okay. The woman nodded and immediately agreed. At the same time, the reformists stationed outside Cape City were still a little worried about whether the rebels would take advantage of their unstable foothold to launch a surprise attack nearby. Therefore, on the first night, after arriving outside Cape City, all the fog ninjas in charge of guarding were very alert. Unfortunately, they overestimated the courage of the rebels. Apart from sending some air ninjas to patrol the sky, the rebels took no action at all and were completely determined to defend the fortified city. Although the enemy's decision saved Liuze and others from the trouble of being attacked and harassed, it also gave Liuze and others a headache in the siege battle they were about to face. Don't be afraid that the enemy has many ideas, but be afraid that the enemy has no ideas. As long as the enemy is greedy and wants to play some tricks, they may find loopholes to achieve countermeasures. However, the enemy only concentrates on defending, and they have no loopholes to find. They can only attack the city with brute force without any skills. It can be said, from a warrior's point of view, it means that there is no move to win without a move. Since there is no move, it is naturally impossible to break. Chapter 187. Prepare to attack. In this way, in the strange silence, the first night of the confrontation between the reformists and the rebels ended. Around noon the next day, the conservative and neutral forces also arrived at the Cape City one after another. The 3 forces did not communicate too much and tacitly formed a triangular formation, surrounding the Cape City in the middle. However, none of the 3 parties took the lead in launching an attack, and because they were at a disadvantage, the rebel forces did not dare to move rashly. For a while, the situation was deadlocked again. But for the rebels, the stalemate was not bad. Their main goal was to delay time. The stalemate not only delayed time, but also reduced their losses, so they were naturally happy. After a day of stalemate, seeing that no one had the intention to take the initiative, the leaders of the 3 forces became a little anxious and quietly sent messengers to inquire about each other's movements. In the end, at the suggestion of the neutrals, they used remote communication technology to hold their first meeting in their respective camps. Meditarumi spoke first. It has been nearly 7 days since the ninja coalition launched a general attack on the ghost army. I'm afraid that it will not be long before they will completely end the war. We don't have much time left. We must seize the opportunity to wipe out the rebel forces as soon as possible. I agree, the war can't be dragged on any longer. The leader of the neutral faction, Genji Kizuki, immediately nodded and expressed his opinion. Because the second generation Mizukichi, Kizuki Hazuki, was from the Kizuki family, Kizuki Hazuki, who was the head of the Kizuki clan at the time, took the position of leader of the neutral faction. As for the leader of the conservative faction, it was temporarily held by Shikiraku Jitachi. After all, he was also the fourth generation Mizukichi in the previous life. However, because he was controlled by someone in his previous life, he had no prestige in the conservative faction or even the entire Kirigakure. He could only sit in this position because he was a Mizukichi. Moreover, he was only the nominal leader of the conservative faction. In fact, the conservatives basically did not take him seriously. He was just a puppet to gather people's hearts. After all, for the lowest people, the title of Mizukichi is still quite useful. I also agree to deal with them as soon as possible, but who should make the first move? Kyujushikan asked the two of them with a playful look. The conservatives have concentrated all their forces in their territory, and their strength is not to be underestimated. The first one to make a move will inevitably be met with the most violent counterattack, and the losses will inevitably be considerable. This is also the reason why the three parties have been deadlocked for a day and no one has rashly made a move. Since no one is willing to make the first move, let's make the move at the same time. Meditarumi immediately put forward her own idea and took a watch from the guard next to her and said seriously, the three of us will check the time and launch an attack from different directions at the same time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No problem. The other two agreed without thinking, and each asked for a watch from the guard next to them to check the time with Meditarumi. Although they seemed to be very cooperative, Meditarumi also knew in her heart that they should have some small moves in private. However, these did not matter. She just wanted to wipe out the rebel forces as soon as possible to prevent Konoha and Kumogakure from intervening and stopping them. After the meeting, Meditarumi immediately found Luz again. "What's up?" Rokuze asked with a tentative smile, looking at the girl with brown red hair in front of him. Meditarumi is the same age as him, and now she is 15 years old. Her body has entered a stage of rapid growth, and she has already had some of the charm of the mature beauty in his memory. I have just discussed with the conservatives and the neutrals, and we are going to launch an offensive at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to break the current deadlock, Meditarumi said very seriously. Agreements are unpredictable. Rokuze shook his head and said, although they will not completely violate the agreement and ignore the overall situation, they will definitely make some small moves. That's right. Meditarumi took the opportunity to sit opposite him and continued, so, I plan to continue to appoint you as the captain of the first column and lead the first column to launch the first round of attack. You are really good at ordering people around. You only assign me some hard tasks. Rokuze glared at her fiercely. It is obvious that Meditarumi has taken a fancy to the powerful defensive ability of the rebellious armor of the Taketori clan. That's why he was deliberately appointed as the captain of the first column, leading the first column to launch the first round of offensive. Although he was very unhappy, he also expressed his understanding. If it were him, he would make the same arrangement. With such a strong defensive team, it is natural to arrange it to the front, to share more pressure and use the best steel on the blade. Please. Only your clan with strong defensive capabilities is most suitable to serve as a forward. Meditarumi stared at Rokuze and solemnly requested. Okay, you don't have to do this. I know what to do. Rokuze couldn't help but sigh lightly. Although the job is hard, it can also greatly improve the inherent image of the Taketori clan in the minds of others. He has no reason to refuse. Thank you. Meditarumi showed a happy expression, and then instructed, although I ordered you to be the vanguard, I didn't ask you to die. If you find something wrong, or if the conservatives and neutrals have any unusual movements, you can lead the people to retreat immediately, and there is no need to entangle with the enemy. I know this. Liuze nodded, and then said, but instead of worrying about me, you might as well worry about the other people in the team first. My bamboo clan has the rebellion armor to protect us. I'm afraid that, even if all the other people in the whole column die, we will not be in any trouble. The strength of the rebellion armor gave him enough confidence to lead his clan members to deal with any difficulties. But this time there were too many enemies. Even if they could block some of the offensive, the rest was not something that others could bear. Don't worry, I will leave the second and third columns behind to cover you with long-range ninjutsu. By the way, guard against the conservatives and neutrals. Meditarumi said seriously. That's good. Ryuze nodded. Finally, after finding a watch and checking the time with Meditarumi, the two separated again. Ryuze also told everyone in the first column to gather their strength and prepare for the battle. The time soon came to 2:30, and Ryuze immediately gathered all the members of the first column. However, he did not rush to launch an attack, but just gathered people in advance to facilitate the next action. And by the way, let everyone feel the atmosphere of this large-scale war to avoid temporary mistakes. Open your eyes later, don't rush forward. Be careful to avoid the enemy's offensive. While there was still time, he reminded everyone again. He was not very worried about the Bamboo Clan having the rebellious armor to protect them, but others did not. Even if there was ninjutsu to cover the back, it was not enough to block all the enemy's attacks. It's always better to be careful, and the chance of survival will be higher. Don't worry, sir. We will be careful, and will not joke with our lives. Yes, sir. Don't worry. Everyone echoed, and the whole team suddenly became a lot noisier, which indirectly diluted the tension brought by the war. Chapter 188. The attack begins. Time passed quickly, and the agreed time was coming soon. Seeing the hour and minute hands on the watch pointing to 3 o'clock, Ryuze immediately gave the order, attack. Before he finished speaking, he immediately took the lead and rushed forward. Although there was the protection of the rebellion armor, it was still very dangerous on such a large battlefield, so the clan's senior ninjas accelerated to catch up, surpassed Ryuze, and protected him behind them. The first column of Miss Ninjas who fell behind did not hesitate. Seeing Ryuze leading the charge, they also quickly followed. At the same time, the conservatives and neutrals also launched an offensive from the other two directions as agreed. However, both teams were careful and deliberately slowed down a few beats when they set off, and did not really attack on time. This also made the reformist team stand out on the entire battlefield. It was closer to the Cape City than the other two teams, and immediately became the focus of the rebels on the city. Then, under the tense gazes of the rebels, the reformists rushed from the safe area into the attack range of the chakra cannon. Fire! Noticing this, the air ninja in charge of commanding the bombardment immediately issued an attack order. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, on the wall facing Ryuze's party, all the chakra cannons burst into dazzling light. Even if they were not perception type ninjas, everyone could clearly sense that countless strong chakra fluctuations were generated and then bombarded them rapidly. Be careful, avoid it. Ryuze shouted a warning. Unlike in the past, this time the number of chakra energy bombs was extremely large, and the distribution range was very wide. The Taketori clan alone could not intercept them all. If they could not avoid or defend in time, the Miss Ninjas who had no special defense methods could not withstand such bombardment. Sensing the attack from a very long distance, the Taketori ninjas who rushed to the front immediately jumped up and prepared to block the bombardment with their own bodies. Boom, boom, boom. With deafening roars and dazzling bright lights, countless chakra energy bombs were intercepted in mid-air, causing violent explosions. However, more chakra energy bombs flew over the Taketori ninjas and were projected toward the back of the first column. However, before the attack, everyone had prepared themselves mentally and knew that they would face such a situation. Therefore, the people in the back immediately released the ninjutsu they had prepared early in the morning to resist. Water style, iron cannon bomb fire style, flame bomb wind style, vacuum wave. In an instant, countless ninjutsu bloomed in the sky, blocking the compressed energy bombs that were projected. Then, the power of both sides caused an explosion, and the terrifying impacts came one after another, converging into a terrifying storm that spread around. The weak genin immediately lost their balance and were blown away. Even if the others could keep their feet, they had to slow down to prevent being blown away. In this way, the momentum of the first column's attack slowed down. At the same time, Liuz and his men were taken care of by the rebel forces because they showed up, but it did not mean that the offensive of the conservatives and neutrals would be smooth. The powerful firepower and ultra-long range attack of the chakra cannon meant that no one could easily deal with it. Damn it. The watermelon mountain puffer ghost waved his cross muscle to block one of the compressed energy bombs and absorbed it, but he could not feel any joy in his heart because more energy bombs fell into the rear, causing a lot of casualties to his troops. After all, they did not have the strong armor of the Taketori clan, which could form a human wall to resist, and ninjutsu attacks alone could not block all energy bombs. The situation on the neutral side was not very good either. Even though the Hazuki clan relied on the water transformation technique to greatly reduce the damage of this bombardment to them, the other mist ninjas in the army did not have this ability. Therefore, their casualties were not much better than those of the conservatives. Relatively speaking, the reformists had the Taketori clan blocking a considerable part of the bombardment, so even though they were given special attention by the rebel forces, their actual casualties were slightly smaller than those of the other two parties. In this way, under the fierce bombardment of the rebel forces, the three armies finally broke through the critical point and entered the 10-meter radius of Cape City. However, this critical distance is very dangerous and is also the limit of the attack of ordinary ninjutsu. In other words, after entering this range, Liuz and his men can use ninjutsu to attack the enemies on the city wall, but the enemies can also use ninjutsu to attack them. Coupled with the bombardment of the chakra cannon, they have entered the most dangerous area. But at the same time, if they can further break through the blockade and rush to the enemy's city wall, they can completely get rid of the enemy's chakra bombardment and indiscriminate ninjutsu attacks, and the situation will be greatly alleviated. However, compared with the distance of nearly 1,000 meters just now, this short 10 meters is like a natural mode for the ninjas, making it difficult to move forward. The rebel ninjas on the city wall cast spells together and launched indiscriminate attacks. In an instant, countless ninjutsu formed a colorful storm and rushed towards the three ninja armies under the city wall. Fire style, fire dragon bullet technique, water style, water dragon bullet technique, earth style, earth dragon bullet technique. In order to resist the chakra bombardment on the wall, everyone has already spent a lot of energy. Now they have to face the ninjutsu attack on the wall, which is a bit overwhelming. Seeing that many ninjas immediately fell on the way of the charge, Liuz, who was rushing to the front, dodged a thunder-style bombardment, and suddenly another big wave hit him in front. Water style, great waterfall technique, because the impact range of the big wave is very wide, seeing that it is impossible to avoid it. Liuz can only silently condense chakra at the bottom of his feet, ready to absorb the ground to meet the impact. Boom. With a loud noise, the big wave bombarded him, and Liuz desperately used chakra to absorb the ground, and then he stabilized his heels. However, at this moment, another icy air fell from the city wall and merged into the water flow in front. Ice release, frozen earth in an instant. With that cold air as the center, the water flow on the ground was frozen and turned into ice and spread rapidly in all directions. Not good. Get out of the way. Liuz knew something was wrong and hurriedly reminded everyone to get out of the way. Unfortunately, with water as the medium, the freezing speed of ice release is much faster than usual. Liuz, who was already deeply trapped in the water, had just raised one foot to jump and dodge, and the rapidly spreading ice had already covered his body, and many ninjas around him were already frozen in it. At this moment, another powerful chakra wave fell from above. Chapter 189, A Defeat. Tatsunan, fierce wind blast. Instantly, a powerful storm descended, and then quickly expanded and opened in all directions. Seeing that, the ice crystals condensed on the ground were also torn apart by the storm, and turned into ice chips and rolled in. That is not an ordinary wind, but a combination of sharp air. Liuz immediately understood the nature of the storm when he saw it. It is also because of this that the storm can tear the ice layer apart. No, it is better to say that it is cut apart than to tear apart. Those sharp cyclones cut the ice layer, just like the sharp wind attribute chakra changes, but it is more powerful than the normal wind escape changes. Sensing the crisis, the stronger Taketori Jonin in front immediately used the corpse vein to grow bone spurs on the surface of the armor and easily broke the ice from the inside and regained freedom. Unfortunately, the storm spread too quickly, and before he could resist it, he was swallowed by the storm. Ryuzen and others who were frozen in the back and had no time to escape were no exception. They felt their eyes darken and were swept into the storm. Then, a rustling sound came from all around. The sharp airflow in the storm cut through the ice layer on his body and then fell on the armor on his body. Unfortunately, his bone armor was not the fragile ice crystal just now. This technique, created by the power of the whole clan, plus the personal shaping of the Jonin, has extraordinary defensive capabilities and cannot be broken by ordinary power, even if the storm is also a rare blood limit. Rustling. The sharp air kept rubbing against the armor, making bursts of harsh sounds, but it could not penetrate any further and was blocked outside. Soon, the storm dissipated and everything that was covered around appeared again. All the bamboo cutter ninjas were unharmed. Only a few of the same clansmen at the level of genin could not stand and were blown to the ground by the strong wind. However, the other mist ninjas who were closer to the bamboo cutter clan were in trouble. They didn't have the armor of rebellion to protect them. Facing the sudden ice and storm, many people died on the spot, staining the ground red with blood. On the city wall, the wind and snow clans, who had just launched a joint attack, frowned when they saw this. What a strong armor, it can completely block our fierce wind blast. A Jonin from the Wind clan couldn't help but exclaimed. He also saw the previous situation where the bamboo clan used their bodies to withstand the chakra bombardment. He thought that it was just that the power of the bombardment was dispersed, so it couldn't break such a defense. But when they actually used the more condensed platform escape to attack, they found that they had completely underestimated the armor of the bamboo clan. Such a defense is beyond the ability of most people to break. I told you a long time ago, but you didn't believe it at all. Do you believe it now? Shannon walked over slowly, his face full of sarcasm. Everyone looked at each other in embarrassment. At this moment, a slightly majestic female voice came from the shadows not far away. Okay, don't worry about those boring things. You should be more careful and keep all the enemies under the city wall. If they really rush up the wall, I'm afraid they will be close to breaking the city. By keeping the enemy under the city wall, the chakra cannon can play its full role and greatly reduce the pressure of defense. But once the enemy rushes up the city wall, the two sides enter the stage of hand-to-hand combat. The chakra cannon will inevitably be affected, and they can no longer use indiscriminate ninjutsu attacks at will. In this case, it is naturally very difficult to defend the city wall. Seeing the exquisite figure in the shadow, everyone's face stagnated. They wanted to refute a few words, but seemed to have concerns. After hesitating for a while, they still said nothing and refocused their attention on the city wall. At this time, the first column led by Ryuzen was approaching the city wall with difficulty under the continuous attack of the enemy. I don't know why, from the beginning, he suddenly felt that the attack pressure exerted on the city wall increased a lot, which also slowed down their already slow advancement speed. Seeing that they were less than 5 meters away from the foot of the city wall, the voice of Meditarumi suddenly came from the radio communication equipment in his ears. Agent Ryuzen, retreat quickly, our siege has failed. Failed? Ryuzen was stunned on the spot when he suddenly received this news, and even forgot to dodge the fire attack falling on his head. Boom. A scorching fireball hit Ryuzen and submerged him in the sea of fire, but the flames soon dissipated, revealing his unharmed figure. Why did it fail? Isn't it going well for us? We have already advanced to the bottom of the city wall. Ryuzen asked in confusion, and took another step forward. Because the vanguard of the conservative and neutral factions was defeated, they have been ordered to retreat. The anxious voice of Meditarumi came again in the radio headset. What? Ryuzen couldn't help but hold his breath when he heard the news. He never expected that the failure of the first siege was due to this. No wonder he suddenly felt that the pressure on the city wall had increased a lot. It turned out that it was because the conservatives and neutrals retreated, which allowed the rebel forces on the city wall to transfer the pressure to their group. If they continue to force the siege, it means that they will have to bear all the pressure of the rebel forces alone, and the losses will be immeasurable. Realizing this, Ryuzen immediately gave the order. Retreat. The entire army retreat. After hearing this order, the messenger ninja not far from him was very puzzled, but he still passed the order down faithfully. Soon, as the order to retreat was passed down, the mist ninjas who were rushing forward desperately began to retreat slowly. However, the rebel forces were obviously not going to let them go so easily. Seeing that the reformers also retreated, the rebels immediately intensified their offensive. Even the sky ninjas who had been hovering in the sky and only using chakra hand cannons for long-range attacks bravely swooped down to launch an attack. Some mist ninjas were relatively weak and did not pay attention to the threat in the sky. They were immediately caught by the swooping sky ninjas and lifted into the sky like a hunting eagle. Let me go. Seeing that the distance from the ground was getting higher and higher, the captured mist ninja was terrified. Okay, I'll fulfill your wish. Feeling that the height was about right, the sky ninja showed a cruel smile and then loosened his hands. In an instant, the captured mist ninja screamed in fear and then fell to the ground involuntarily. The screams soon stopped and the falling mist ninja immediately fell into a pool of meat paste, deader than dead. However, some mist ninjas who were not strong enough were caught and fell to death, and some sky ninjas who were not strong enough were killed by the mist ninjas on the ground. A sky ninja locked onto Ryuze's figure and then pounced on him with lightning speed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Rescue Operation, Part 1. Don't overestimate your own abilities. Having already noticed the enemy swooping down from the sky, Ryuze remained calm and silently gathered chakra on his shoulders. Swish. The air ninja was extremely fast, like a hawk swooping down from the sky, and grabbed Ryuze's shoulders. Now, feeling the pressure on his shoulders, Ryuze narrowed his eyes and immediately activated the power of the corpse bone vein to act on his bone shoulder armor. In an instant, two bone spurs suddenly emerged on the left and right, piercing the palms of the air ninja that were holding his shoulders. The air ninja screamed in pain, and the strength he had just gathered immediately dispersed, and his plan to grab Ryuze into the sky was thus thwarted. Immediately afterwards, Ryuze grabbed the top of his head with his backhand, and a round head immediately fell into his palm. Without using any fancy techniques, he just pulled his opponent to the ground with force and immediately smashed him heavily to the ground. Boom. The flying device of the air ninja was smashed, and the whole person was also smashed and completely lost the ability to resist. Ryuze twisted his wrist and easily broke the opponent's neck. Seeing that many of their companions were killed in their sneak attacks, many air ninjas who originally wanted to pursue the victory suddenly calmed down, just hanging in the sky and continuing to use chakra hand cannons to attack, and never dared to dive down rashly. Perhaps because retreat is easier to accept than attack, and the pressure is less, the first column led by Ryuze withdrew from the rebels' attack range at a much faster speed than the offensive advancement, and returned to the safe zone, leaving only some bloody corpses on the battlefield ahead. Without taking a rest, Ryuze panted and ordered his confidant, Junior Shinobi, please count the casualties of this battle, as soon as possible. In addition, the supplies that need to be replenished should be replenished as soon as possible. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded and disappeared immediately. Just as Ryuze and his men launched their first siege, the rescue team lurking in Cape City also began to move. While most of the city's attention was attracted by the siege, they easily touched the outside of the dungeon and hid in a dark alley nearby. In addition to the two guards at the door, there are also two secret guards hidden in the shadows of the stone pillars on the left and right. The deployment is the same as on the map. The perception type ninja checked and said to everyone, although there is already a defense map, no one dares to guarantee that their deployment map is accurate. Therefore, for safety reasons, they need to use the power of perception type ninjas to verify the accuracy of the intelligence before they can take action. In this case, I will lead a physical ninja to launch a surprise attack from the front to attract their attention, and the rest of you will hide and wait for the opportunity to kill the two secret guards in the dark with one blow. The leader Taketori Fujitsu made a decision immediately. No problem. Several people nodded in unison. Then, Taketori Fujitsu chose a fellow tribesman, and then walked out of the shadow of the alley and slowly walked towards the entrance of the dungeon. Ta. Hearing the footsteps, the two guards at the dungeon door also noticed Fujitsu and the other man. Seeing the two men slowly approaching the dungeon, the two guards couldn't help but get nervous and secretly tightened their kunai in their hands. "Who are you?" the guard on the right shouted from a distance. Fujitsu and the other man were both wearing bamboo hats, so they couldn't see their faces clearly, let alone distinguish between enemies and friends. Taketori Fujitsu didn't answer, but just silently quickened his pace. Stop. Seeing this, the two guards shrank their nerves and immediately threw the kunai in their hands. "You go left, I go right, kill." Avoiding the kunai, Fujitsu whispered an order, and then suddenly accelerated and rushed out. The same clan jonin who followed him out also had a tacit understanding, and almost at the same time burst out at a high speed, and pounced on the guard on the left. Oh no, it's an enemy attack. Seeing this, the two guards completely confirmed that the newcomers were enemies. Seeing that they were too late to form a seal, they quickly took out another kunai to prepare for the enemy. Unfortunately, Taketori Fujitsu and the other two were much faster than they had imagined. Ninjas who were good at physical skills had strong physical fitness, so their speed was much faster than that of ninjutsu type ninjas of the same level. In addition, Fujitsu and his family were from the Taketori clan, a famous family for physical skills, and were the best among physical skills ninjas. Their speed of attack was much faster than that of ordinary jonins. Before the two jonin guards in charge of guarding the cell door could even react, the two had already used the flash body technique to get close to them. Die. Taketori Fujitsu stretched out his right hand, pointed his palm at the enemy's chest, and pushed it over, and silently activated the corpse bone vein, preparing to generate bone spurs from the palm of his hand, to kill the enemy with one blow. However, although the two guards in the open did not have time to respond, they knew that they still had two partners hiding in the dark who could take care of them at any time. Therefore, even though they were facing the crisis of death at this moment, they still did not feel nervous at all. As long as they blocked the attack and attracted the opponent's attention, their companions hiding in the dark could kill the enemy with one blow. Then, the two sneered and raised the kunai in their hands, ready to block this sudden attack. Unfortunately, they were too happy too early. Fujitsu did not dodge, and several bone spurs appeared from his palms, immediately stuck the kunai in them, and continued to stab the opponent's chest with pressure. Corpse bone vein. Taketori clan. The guards finally recognized the people and were surprised. At the same time, the two secret sentries hiding in the dark also quietly attacked Taketori Fujitsu and the others from behind. However, Fujitsu and the others did not even look back, and did not hesitate at all, and still resolutely launched a fatal attack on the enemy in front of them. Damn it, do you want to die with us? The two guards who were attacked finally panicked. According to their expectations, facing the sudden attack from behind, their opponents should temporarily give up the offensive, and avoid the fatal attack from behind. Who would have thought that the two people in front of them seemed to not take their lives seriously at all, and wanted to kill them at all costs. At this moment, they couldn't help but start to wonder if they had offended the two people at some point in their previous lives, which led to them trying their best to kill them. At the same time as the two secret sentries appeared, the other members of the rescue team hiding not far away also launched an attack. Lightning release. Lightning wind release. Vacuum wave. The ninjutsu that had been brewing for a long time was immediately released and shot at the two secret sentries respectively. Oh no, there are still enemies hiding. Realizing that something was wrong, the two secret sentries were shocked. They were eager to change their moves to avoid, but the enemy had a deliberate plan and timed it just right, completely eliminating the possibility of their avoidance and blocking. Stop. One was bombarded by the lightning, and the other was cut by the sharp wind blade. In just an instant, both were killed and turned into two corpses falling to the ground. Chapter 191 Rescue Operation, Part 2. Seeing the two sentries dead, the two guards who had originally had high hopes for them suddenly changed their expressions and felt regretful. Unfortunately, it was too late. Taketori Fujitsu's bone spur had already pierced into the opponent's chest and continued to stimulate the growth of the bone spur, easily piercing the opponent's heart. Although the other Taketori Jonin had not awakened the corpse bone vein, he also successfully suppressed the opponent with his excellent physical skills and broke his neck. At this point, the 4 mist ninjas guarding outside the dungeon were all eliminated, and several members of the rescue team hiding in the dark also hurried forward to join them. Taketori Fujitsu looked at his watch and whispered, "According to our intelligence, the guards here will be replaced in half an hour. So, we must rescue the old patriarch within this half hour. Otherwise, we will be discovered soon, and once we are blocked in this dungeon, it will be difficult to get out. Don't worry, we will do our best." Everyone nodded, with determination on their faces. At this time, the perception ninja had already placed his palm on the dungeon door, carefully sensing everything inside. There is also a hidden sentry on each side behind the door. But this door can greatly block the perception ability. They should not know what is happening outside. She silently reported the situation to everyone. Even with her professional perception ability, it is difficult to detect the situation behind the door. It is thought that the 2 guards behind the door should not be able to discover the battle that just happened outside the door. After all, perception type ninjas are very rare and will not be placed in such a place at will. Then, you go left, and I go right. Continue. Fujitsu looked at his companion who had just cooperated with him. Okay. The Jonin nodded. Then, under the nervous gaze of the others, the perception ninja slowly pushed the dungeon door inward. Creak. Accompanied by a strange friction sound, the gap in the dungeon door slowly opened, and a gap big enough for a person to pass through was opened. Taketori Fujitsu exchanged glances with the Jonin just now, and then he flashed and rushed in. After getting the hint, the Jonin also rushed in. Without too much words, the 2 separated to both sides tacitly and began to look for the secret sentry hidden behind the door. Unlike the complex terrain outside, there is a wide passage behind the dungeon door. In this simple terrain environment, there is naturally nothing that can be used as a cover, and it can only rely on the dim environment to hide. If it were normal, people passing by the gate would go in directly and would not stay for too long, so it would be difficult to find the existence of the secret sentry. But now, Taketori Fujitsu and the other 2 mentioned the reminder, and then deliberately searched, and easily found the 2 secret sentries hidden in the dark. The 2 secret sentries who had been leisurely observing the past situation behind the door did not expect that someone would suddenly find them today. They immediately realized that something was wrong, because normally people passing by here would not deliberately come to find them. This is likely to be an enemy. Unfortunately, their leisurely life had worn out their vigilance. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was too late. In this passage, that was only 5 meters wide, Taketori Fujitsu came to the target in one step, grabbed the opponent's neck, and pressed him against the wall behind him. Catcher. After a crisp bone fracture, Fujitsu broke the sentry's neck neatly, leaving him no chance to resist. At the same time he broke the enemy's neck, a similar sound came from behind. Another senior ninja also broke the opponent's neck. It was so easy. I thought it would take more effort. Looking at the corpse under his feet, the man sighed. Compared with the 2 guards they had just killed outside, killing these 2 sentries was a piece of cake. Don't be careless. Taketori Fujitsu shook his head and said, these 2 guys are secret sentries, so no one usually pays attention to them, so they are more relaxed. If it were other guards, it wouldn't be so easy to succeed. That's true. Another Jonin nodded. At this time, the rest of the rescue team also followed in and closed the door again. Please continue to explore the way for us, sir. Fujitsu said softly to the perception ninja. No trouble, this is my responsibility. The perception ninja smiled slightly, and then while moving forward, he released his perception to explore the way for the group. Combined with the dungeon defense map that the Taketori clan had found out early in the morning, the group was unstoppable and successfully killed the guards and secret sentries along the way, and finally reached the deepest part of the dungeon. In a cell at the deepest part, the 8 Taketori ninjas saw a familiar figure. An old man with white hair and 2 red marks between his eyebrows. Old Patriarch. Several people couldn't help but shout out, and quickly opened the prison door. Fuji gang, why are you guys here? Recognizing the people, the old patriarch was surprised. We are here to rescue you, sir, on the orders of Liu's agent. Several people stepped forward excitedly and opened the shackles on the old patriarch. Liu's agent? Who is that? The old patriarch was stunned. After being imprisoned for several years, he had no idea what had happened outside. Fuji gang shook his head and interrupted him. We'll talk about this later. Now please check for the old patriarch. If you find any controlled objects such as curses, please help seal them. As he said that, he gestured to the sealing ninja and the sensing ninja behind him. No problem. The sensing ninja nodded and immediately put a hand on the old patriarch's shoulder. However, the old patriarch slapped it down nonchalantly and said with a smile, "Don't worry, those guys didn't do anything to me. We can leave here now." "No, for your safety, we must check." Taketori Fujitsu shook his head with a firm face. Seeing this, the old patriarch did not insist anymore and could only sigh and say, "Okay, check it quickly. I've been here for so long, I'm tired of it." Then, the perception ninja put his hand on it again and silently explored the old patriarch's body carefully. The others were afraid of disturbing them and they didn't even dare to breathe, so they could only stand aside and wait silently. Soon, the inspection was over. "How is it?" I said. "It's okay." The old patriarch looked at a few people confidently and immediately walked out of the prison. "No." The perception ninja hurriedly stopped him and said seriously, "I found a curse seal on you, sir. It is hidden in your heart. Very secret." Chapter 192 Rescue Operation, Part 2. The old clan leader was stunned at first, then waved his hands and said, "That's impossible. In the past few years, I didn't notice anything unusual. More importantly, they never used any curse seal on me." He didn't want to believe the other party's judgment. The perception ninja shook his head and said seriously, "Your excellency has been imprisoned for so long, and your chakra has been restricted. Naturally, your perception ability has declined significantly, and your grasp of your physical condition must not be very accurate. So, your excellency has never noticed the existence of the curse seal, which is actually normal. As for why they have never used the curse seal on you, the reason is very simple, because there is no need to use it." Hearing this, the old clan leader was struck by lightning, and his face changed immediately. After a moment, he couldn't help but sighed. "It seems that I'm really old." Hearing such a simple matter, he would actually argue with a perception ninja, which shows that his thinking has been seriously rigid and his judgment has declined a lot in the past few years of imprisonment. Under normal circumstances, he would not be as abnormal as today. "Well, hurry up and seal the curse for me." He came to his senses and glanced at everyone. "Excuse me, sir." Taketori Fujitsu bowed to the sealing ninja. "No problem, this is my responsibility." The sealing ninja nodded and came to the old patriarch. After searching the old patriarch and confirming the location of the curse, he silently began to make hand seals. 24 hand seals were completed in one go, and he then condensed the chakra in his palm and gently pressed it on the old patriarch's heart. The yin spring stops flowing. "Seal." With his light shout, the chakra turned into blue runes one after another and penetrated into the old patriarch's body and floated towards the hidden location of the curse seal on the heart. When the last rune also floated to the location of the curse seal, all the runes changed again. Under the control of the sealing ninja, they condensed into a blue array pattern and imprinted on the old patriarch's heart, tightly surrounding the curse seal. When the entire array pattern was completely stabilized, it slowly disappeared into the heart of the old patriarch, no longer showing up, just like a hidden curse seal. "Alright." The sealing ninja retracted his palm, breathed a sigh of relief and said, "The curse seal they left on the old Taketori patriarch should be the seal of burning heart and boiling blood. I use the yin cold attribute and spring cutting flow to seal it, which can greatly suppress the power of the curse seal. Even if the enemy activates it, it can reduce the pain of the adults as much as possible. There are many kinds of seals, and different seals have different effects on different things. Seal of burning heart and boiling blood is a yin fire attribute curse seal, so he chose the yin cold attribute and spring cutting flow to seal and restrict it." "Thank you very much." Taketori Fujitsu and many Taketori ninjas bowed to him again. However, Time is urgent, let's leave here quickly. After urging, Taketori Fujitsu immediately took the lead and rushed out of the cell and rushed towards the dungeon exit. Because all the guards and sentries had been cleared when they came, the exit was unusually smooth this time, and they arrived at the dungeon exit in less than 5 minutes. At this time, nearly 25 minutes had passed since they entered the dungeon. The perception type ninja in charge of exploring the way looked outside through the dungeon gate and nodded, saying, "It's safe outside. The guards in charge of rotation have not arrived yet. Let's leave quickly." Everyone immediately opened the gate and then rushed out one after another, disappearing into the dark alley. About 5 minutes later, the guards in charge of rotation came to the dungeon and saw the body lying at the door and immediately realized that something was wrong. Oh no, something happened. Someone screamed and rushed into the dungeon. What appeared before him was the bodies of guards and sentries all over the ground. Damn, what happened here? They searched all the way to the depths of the dungeon and saw that the cell where the old chief of the Taketori clan was originally imprisoned had become empty. Based on the descriptions of other prisoners in the dungeon, they soon learned the general situation. The Bamboo clan sent out an elite team of 10 people who took advantage of the chaos of the battle outside to break into the dungeon and rescue the old Bamboo clan leader. Without hesitation, everyone reported the intelligence to the higher-ups. Damn it. Upon hearing the news, many higher-ups who were originally happy about resisting the first siege of the 3 parties were furious. Seeing their loss of composure, Shannon couldn't help but sneer, "A bunch of useless guys who can't even take care of a hostage." Upon hearing this, the leader of the Wind Clan immediately retorted, "It's better than having your country destroyed and becoming a wandering ninja without a home." What? Being poked in the sore spot, Shannon couldn't help but get a little angry, and his chakra immediately gathered in his right arm, and he was seen being blown up like a balloon. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, a female ninja who was originally sitting in the corner frowned and stood up. "Enough," she shouted softly and stepped heavily on the ground. Kakaka. Instantly, a strong force spread out, and countless cracks spread from her feet. The walls of the entire conference hall were cracked. Feeling the horror of the blow, everyone immediately quieted down. Seeing this, the female ninja glanced at everyone and said coldly, "The hostages escaped. It's not a big deal. If you have the time to quarrel here, you might as well send people to search the whole city. From the current situation, they should not have escaped yet, and there is still a possibility of catching them back. However, just in case, I suggest you make a second-hand preparation and play this card in advance." Hearing this, the rebel leaders immediately fell into deep thought. After a long time, the patriarch of the Snow Clan nodded and said seriously, "Let's do as the adults say." The others did not object and nodded in agreement. Then, they immediately mobilized a large number of people to search the city and sent additional people to quietly leave Cape City. At this time, the rescue team led by Taketori Fujitsu successfully rescued the old patriarch, but when they escaped from the dungeon, the siege outside had ended in a hurry, and they lost the opportunity to take advantage of the chaos to leave the city. Helplessly, they could only lurk in the city and wait patiently for the next siege outside. However, the waiting process is always long and painful. After realizing that the old patriarch of the Taketori was rescued, in order to capture the target as soon as possible, the rebels used some unknown method to forcibly trigger the scorching heart and boiling blood seal in the old patriarch's body. Fortunately, a sealing ninja set up the Yinquan Liu seal for the old patriarch in advance, which greatly suppressed the power of the scorching heart and boiling blood seal, which enabled the old patriarch to barely withstand the pain and isolate the caster from the induction of the curse seal as much as possible, so that their whereabouts would not be exposed. Chapter 193, A Quarrel Among 3 Persons. At the same time, Taketori Shinsuke outside the city came to Rokuze after completing the inventory. "Report to the Lord. We have more than 200 deaths this time, and countless wounded. Even my Taketori clan has wounded." Taketori Shinsuke lowered his head and reported, "We have." Rokuze was about to ask for details, but suddenly realized that, although the rebellion armor can resist attacks, it cannot completely resist them. If the enemy's attack is too strong, some of the remaining force will still act on the body through the armor. Then, it is not surprising that the Taketori ninjas who have been attacked on the battlefield for a long time will be injured. Are they seriously injured? Rokuze asked immediately. Fortunately, it's not a fatal injury. Taketori Shinsuke shook his head and replied. That's good. Rokuze secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, I'm going to report the situation to Lord Terumi. You stay here and watch for me. After that, he turned around and walked towards Terumi's command tent without caring whether Taketori Shinsuke agreed or not. At this time, Terumi in the command tent was furious at the conservative and neutral leaders through video communication. Do you know what you are doing? I have already reached the city and will soon be able to climb the city to fight. Just because you suddenly retreated, we failed and all our sacrifices were in vain. The defenders had the advantage of terrain, especially with the ultra long range firepower attack of the chakra cannon, so before climbing the city wall, it was difficult for them to cause much damage to it. On the other hand, they had to suffer the opponent's full strength attack, almost being beaten the whole time. This also led to a completely unequal loss of both sides. But if they could climb the city wall, the chakra cannon would inevitably be difficult to use, and the enemy would no longer be able to use large-scale attacks without scruples, and the battle would enter a new stage. Perhaps, it is still unknown whether they can break through Cape City and completely eliminate the rebel forces in this battle. Please calm down, Lord Terumi. The neutral faction's Genji Hizumi shouted softly and said calmly, this attack is just a test. Could it be that you really expect to easily capture Cape City in one go? But, Terumi was so angry that she couldn't speak. She knew that it was just a test, but it was still hard for her to accept such an easy retreat. However, the first to issue the retreat order was the conservative faction. Lord Goju Shikira, shouldn't you explain to us? Hazumi Genji cast his eyes on the other face on the video. With the strength of the neutral faction, they can still continue to hold on, but the sudden retreat of the conservative faction has increased their pressure sharply. In order to reduce unnecessary losses, he had to follow and issue a retreat order. Goju Shikira hesitated for a moment and said embarrassedly, the puffer ghost told me that the front line could not hold on any longer, so in order to reduce losses, the retreat order was issued. Although he usually doesn't deal with government affairs, it doesn't mean that he is really stupid. Obviously, the sudden retreat this time was intentional by the puffer ghosts. But after all, they belonged to the same camp, and he couldn't dismantle the Fubigi in front of the reformists and the neutralists, so he could only help cover up. Seeing that Terumi's face was getting uglier and uglier, Shikira hurriedly added, of course, I have already warned them seriously. They are not allowed to retreat without permission in the future. Okay, I don't want to pursue the responsibility anymore. Let's discuss what to do in the next round of offensive. The leader of the neutral faction, Genji Kitano, came out to smooth things over. Seeing this, Terumi couldn't hold on any longer, so he changed the subject and said, I think that in our next round of attack, we must climb the city wall and explore what cards the rebels have, so as to prepare for the final decisive battle. The previous round of probing, except for making them feel that the rebels' long-range firepower was very strong, almost nothing else was tested, which was really a complete failure. It can even be said that it was just sending the people below to die in vain. That's right, I agree with the opinion of leader Terumi. Motegi Kizuna nodded and added, I have just received a letter from the coalition. Konoha has completely sealed the ghost army and defeated the evil god Wuliang. I think it won't be long before they interfere in our war. We must quickly test the strength of the rebel forces and then completely wipe them out to cut off the opportunity for Konoha to intervene. Fortunately, the water country is isolated overseas and has excellent geographical advantages. Even if Konoha has ended the war, it still needs a certain amount of time to prepare if it wants to directly intervene in the battle here. For example, it will take several days to transport reinforcement here. Otherwise, it would be impossible to stop the offensive of the three reformists with just pale words. In that case, I have no objection. Goju Shikira nodded seriously. Although the three parties have their own disputes in private, they are determined to wipe out the rebel forces and will never allow Konoha to directly interfere in the internal affairs of the water country. The rebel forces supported by Konoha will never be allowed to exist in the land of water. Meditarumi saw this and immediately added, in order to prevent the same thing from happening again, I propose that this time everyone should advance and retreat together and not act on their own. Okay. Motoji Kizuna nodded and continued, then, let's set the time for our next round of attack at 9 o'clock tonight. They just fought a round, and their people need time to rest, and cannot be sent up again immediately. Although the enemy is also very tired, they have the advantage of terrain, and are definitely in a better situation than them. If they rush to attack them, they will only die in vain. Moreover, attacking at night, under the cover of night, it will not be easy for the enemy to lock onto them and attack, which can slightly reduce their combat damage. No problem. Meditarumi and Shikarakuji nodded. In this way, the leaders of the three forces once again finalized the next round of attack plans. At this time, Ryuzen also came to the outside of Meditarumi's command tent. After the guards checked him again, he finally entered the tent and reported the damage to Meditarumi. I'm sorry, a lot of people died this time, but we didn't achieve any results. Ryuzen bowed slightly. War is always dead. Meditarumi waved her hand and said, besides, this is not your problem in the first place. It was the conservatives who tripped you up. If they hadn't retreated in advance, I think you would have already rushed to the city wall. Then when will our next attack be? Ryuzen asked again. 9 o'clock tonight. Meditarumi crossed her hands and supported her chin and continued, however, this time I will send the second column to attack with you. By then, your pressure should be much lighter. In the first round of attack, although she also sent the second column, it was mainly to follow behind, to cover the first column, so the second column did not face the enemy directly, and most of the pressure was concentrated on the first column. Chapter 194 Goodbye Zuaya. Both columns going together? We should be able to achieve some results. Ryuzen nodded. He also knew very well that it was almost impossible to defeat the enemy in one battle when the situation was unclear, so the second round of siege was to test the enemy's strength and prepare for the final decisive battle. Anything else? Meditarumi asked. Nothing for now. Ryuzen shook her head. Then go down and have a good rest. There will be a big battle waiting for you in the evening. Meditarumi reminded seriously. Yes. Ryuzen responded and then left the big tent. Just as he was about to return to his tent, Taketori Shinsuke came over in a hurry. Seeing his nervous expression, Ryuzen immediately asked, what happened? Taketori Shinsuke did not dare to neglect it and immediately leaned close to Ryuzen's ear and lowered his voice and said, the snow clan is coming. Hearing this, Ryuzen couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The rescue team he sent out had not sent back any news, which meant that the old patriarch had not escaped, and he would inevitably be threatened by the rebel forces. Although he had prepared himself mentally, he still couldn't calm down when he faced this moment. Let's go back and take a look. After calming down quickly, Ryuzen quickened his pace to return. Not long after, the two returned to the base of the first column, and under the leadership of Taketori Shinsuke, they came to a small tent near the edge of the camp. Sir, I deliberately arranged him here to prevent others from noticing. Taketori Shinsuke glanced at the tent and explained to Ryuzen in a low voice. Very good. Ryuzen nodded and instructed, guard the surroundings and don't let anyone get close. After that, he lifted the curtain and entered the tent. Oh, we meet again, Taketori agent. A man in the tent stood up and greeted. Although the light in the tent was dim, Ryuzen could barely recognize that it was Zuya, an acquaintance who had come to the Taketori clan earlier. Seeing the smile on the other person's face, Ryuzen couldn't be happy at all. He immediately said with a straight face, if possible, I hope we will never meet again. As he said that, he found a place in the tent and sat down by himself. Don't show that expression. Zuya waved his hand and said with a smile, I think you should still remember that we had an agreement to cooperate. Yes. Ryuzen nodded. Seeing this, Zuya smiled even more brightly and continued, the higher-ups have made a decision and want the nobles to help. When the reformists launch an attack on the city next time, let the nobles raid the command tent of the reformists to make them lose their footing and unable to attack the city. Hearing this, Ryuze couldn't help but narrow his eyes, staring at the man opposite him, and said in a grim tone, "You are trying to push my Taketori clan into the fire pit completely. Turning against the enemy at the last minute and raiding the command tent is a complete betrayal. Whether it succeeds or not, the reformists will no longer have a foothold, and even the entire Water Kingdom will find it difficult to accommodate them. We have no other options." As if not caring about his murderous gaze, Zuya spread his hands and sighed. "The three major forces of Kirigakure are besieging together. It is difficult for us to defend Cape City with our own strength. In order to survive, we can only ask you to sacrifice yourself. Of course, you can also refuse the appointment as a deputy of Taketori." Zuya's face suddenly changed as soon as he spoke, and he said coldly, "However, when the time comes, we can only release the old chief of the Taketori and let your people help you make the choice." Seeing that the other party no longer concealed his threat, Ryuze couldn't help but clench his fists secretly. He hated being threatened, because there was no autonomy in this way, and there was always a feeling that his fate was not in his own hands. But for the sake of the old chief, he had to endure it temporarily. "I can agree to your request." After taking a deep breath, he nodded and said, "However, for the survival of our tribe, we can't hold on for too long. Once we achieve our goal of disrupting the reformists, we will immediately withdraw and leave. But you must return the old chief to us." As he said that, he looked at Zuya deeply. Hearing this, Zuya was immediately overjoyed. He had heard that this deputy of the Taketori was extraordinary and thought that it would take more time to convince him. Who would have thought that he would be so easily persuaded? Sure enough, no matter how talented this deputy was, the warlike and impulsive genes of the Taketori clan would not change after all. Then, he suppressed his excitement and said calmly, "Don't worry, we will never break our promise. The superiors have already explained that, as long as we see chaos within the reform faction, we will immediately send the old patriarch out of the city and return him to the Taketori clan. As for when that time comes, whether the Taketori clan stays or leaves is up to you to choose." Although he said so, he knew it very well in his heart. If the Taketori clan turned against them at the last minute, they would definitely be finished. The other party would never have the opportunity to choose again. As for the old Taketori clan leader they promised to return, it was naturally a lie. Because when he came out, he had heard the news that the old Taketori clan leader had escaped and was temporarily missing, so they could not hand him over at all. It is precisely because of this that the higher-ups are in a hurry to use this lost card. After all, the Taketori clan does not know this news yet. As long as the news has not been leaked, they can also threaten the Taketori clan with a non-existent card. Seeing this, Ryuze said immediately, "At 9 o'clock tonight, the three forces will launch an attack on the city at the same time. When that time comes, I will lead the tribe to raid the command tent of Meditarumi, so that they have no time to take care of other things, and send someone to the city to meet the old clan leader you released. I hope you will keep your promise, otherwise my Taketori clan will fight you to the death." Feeling the undisguised murderous intent in him, Zuya immediately nodded and said seriously, Of course. We will definitely not break our promise." In fact, he did not believe that after this battle, the Taketori clan could still pose any threat to them. Therefore, he did not take Ryuze's warning to heart at all, but just did some superficial work. Then, for safety reasons, I will go back and report now, he said to Ryuze while making a seal. Change. With a light shout, a puff of white smoke rose from Zua's feet, and then he changed his appearance and became a bamboo cutter ninja. "Go, don't forget my words." Ryuze waved his hand and did not try to stop him. At this special moment, Zua's presence was too sensitive. For safety reasons, he naturally did not want him to stay too long. "Well, see you next time, bamboo cutter agent." Then, Zuya opened the door curtain with a satisfied smile and walked out. Chapter 195. In-depth speculation. After waiting for nearly 10 minutes, Ryuze walked out of the tent calmly when he felt that Zuya had completely gone away. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke, who had heard the conversation between the two outside the tent, was very anxious. "My lord, we really have to." He lowered his voice, but did not finish his words. Knowing what the other party had not finished saying, Liuze did not respond directly, but only gave a warning look and whispered, "Let's talk about it when we get back." After that, he walked towards the location of his tent without looking back. Not long after, he took Taketori Shinsuke back to his own foothold. However, before entering, he whispered to his confidant, "Keep a good look around, and never allow anyone to approach or eavesdrop." "Yes." Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then secretly contacted 6 guards to surround the tent and block the tent where Liuze was. After making arrangements, Liuze lifted the curtain and entered the tent. However, he did not plan to rest. Instead, he quickly used a radio headset to contact Meditarumi, who was in the same camp, to discuss how to deal with the rebel forces so that they could successfully rescue the old patriarch. After all, agreeing to the rebels' demands was only a stopgap measure. In any case, he could not really lead the Taketori clan to turn against them. Even if he did so, he would sacrifice the life of the old patriarch. But for the continuation of the clan, he had no choice but to do so. I believe that, after knowing all this, the old patriarch would agree with his choice. However, in order to prevent the rebel forces from discovering his true intentions, Liuze could not rashly meet with Meditarumi directly, because he could not guarantee that there were no spies from the rebel forces in this camp. If the enemy knew that he had just discussed with Zuya and was in a hurry to meet with Meditarumi, it would inevitably arouse the suspicion of the rebel forces. Meditarumi was very surprised to receive his wireless communication suddenly and immediately asked, "Agent Taketori, is there anything else?" "Just now, someone from the Snow Clan sneaked in to see me." Rokuze did not keep it a secret and broke the news immediately. Huh? Meditarumi raised her eyebrows immediately after hearing it. She remembered what Rokuze had said to her earlier, that the rebel forces wanted to join forces with them. Now, at this special time, the Snow Clan suddenly came, and it must be for that matter. At the same time, she finally understood why Rokuze deliberately used wireless communication to contact her in the same camp. It turned out that it was to keep it secret and prevent being noticed by possible rebel spies. After coming to her senses, Meditarumi immediately asked Liuze, "What did they say to you?" Liuze did not hide anything and said slowly, "They want me to turn against them at the beginning of the next round of siege and raid your command tent, so that the reformists will have no time to take care of other things and cannot attack the city." But what? Hearing that he was hesitant to speak, Meditarumi immediately asked. Liuze took a deep breath. A gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and he said seriously, "My bamboo cutter clan is only about 500 people. Even if we can temporarily cause chaos to the reformists through a surprise attack, that's all, and it can't affect the overall situation. I can't help but boldly guess that their purpose is probably more than that." Hearing this, Meditarumi immediately fell into deep thought. She is not a beautiful vase. In her previous life, she was able to lead the entire Kirigakure to end the Dark Age, which is enough to reflect her skills and ability. After Liuze's reminder, she also realized that the rebel forces' plan this time was too simple and superficial. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in her mind, and she couldn't help but lose her voice. Could it be that they still want to? However, she was a Mizukage in her previous life, and her character and spiritual will were tempered to a higher level. Therefore, she quickly regained her composure and did not say the rest of the words directly. "It seems that we all think of the same thing," Liuze said with a smile. Knowing what he meant, Terumi nodded immediately and said, "If that's the case, they do have the hope of changing the situation and turning the tables. Why don't we try to turn the tables on them?" Liuze immediately suggested. "No problem." Terumi nodded and asked again, "But it's not that easy to deal with them. Have you thought about how to play this scene?" Liuze immediately responded, "At that time, I will find an excuse to raid your command tent. However, in order to prevent the potential lurking enemies from finding out the news, we can't tell the people below in advance and let them deliberately lighter please. So, you want to make a fake play real?" Terumi narrowed her eyes. The fake play becomes real here is naturally not what it originally meant. It is to eliminate the enemy's suspicion and really take action, but the purpose is to make a fake play. It is a fake play that only the two of them know about. However, in this way, the risk is also huge. If the people below do it without knowing it, it is likely to get out of control and make the situation completely out of control, and it will really become a fake play. Guessing the concerns of this beautiful woman, Lyuzen immediately added, "At that time, I will order the people below to aim at capturing you alive and prohibit killing other ninjas. In this way, unnecessary damage should be reduced as much as possible. As for us, we are protected by the rebellious armor. As long as you are not deliberately targeted, it should not be so easy to be killed. Or, you can also issue an order to capture us alive as much as possible on the grounds of investigation to reduce the losses. When the critical moment comes, we can naturally strike back and end all the chaos." "Okay, I agree." After closing her eyes and thinking for a while, Meditarumi finally agreed to the plan. She knew very well that once this plan succeeded, it would become a turning point in this war, and would make a big step forward in their process of eliminating the rebel forces. Then let's look forward to the big show tonight. With a final sigh, Lyuzen cut off contact with Meditarumi. At the same time, Taketori Fujitsugu in Cape City was constantly moving positions in the city with the old patriarch to avoid the large-scale search of the rebel forces in the city. It was also thanks to Lyuzen that he arranged a perception-type ninja for them, so that they could remotely sense the enemy's movements and move in time before the enemy arrived. Otherwise, they would have been found by the rebel forces searching everywhere. Of course, there was also the credit of the sealing ninja. If it weren't for the seal of the burning heart and boiling blood seal on the old patriarch, it would have greatly weakened the induction of the caster. Otherwise, even if there were perception-type ninjas to remotely sense the enemy's movements, it would be useless. Because, in the eyes of the other caster, the burning heart and boiling blood seal on the old patriarch was as conspicuous as the lights in the dark night. Chapter 196. Before the opening. It's dark outside, so it will be easier for us to move and hide now. The rescue team's Miss Ninja, who had just gone out to check the situation, came back to report. With the powerful 5 senses, ninjas can still move freely in the dark, but they still cannot completely ignore the impact of the environment. This is good news for everyone in the rescue team. What is the direction of the reformists' attack? Have you found out about this? Taketori Fujitsu asked seriously. Only when they meet up with their fellow tribesmen and the reformists, as soon as possible, can they be truly safe. So they made a plan early in the morning to break out from the direction of the reformists' attack. It has been found out. The ninja who reported the news nodded and said seriously, "The main attack direction of the reformists is the southeastern city wall, which is also our best direction to break out. However, before that, I think everyone should eat their fill first, conserve their energy and be ready." As he said, he took a package off his back and opened it in front of the group of people. In an instant, a smell of meat wafted out, and a golden roasted suckling pig appeared in front of several people. That was the food he stole when he just went out to check the situation. Smelling the fragrance, several people couldn't help but salivate. One person swallowed his saliva and said, "Don't tell me, I'm really hungry." From the afternoon till now, they have been constantly moving and hiding, and have not eaten anything at all. They are really a little hungry. Although they have Binglian pills to replenish their physical strength, that kind of thing can't provide a sense of fullness. After all, it is just a small pill that can't fill a hungry stomach. Then eat it while it's hot. Fujitsu looked at everyone, then tore off a roast suckling pig's leg and handed it to the old patriarch respectfully. "My lord, please." "Thank you." Time passed quickly, and it was already 8:30 in a blink of an eye. Seeing that the time was almost up, Liu sat in the tent and said to the outside, "Shinsuke Jonin, pass on my order. All the tribesmen come closer to me. I have something to say to them." Raiding the command tent is tantamount to rebellion. Although he and Meditarumi knew that this was acting, the people below didn't know. Therefore, although he was the captain of the first column, others would never obey such meaningless orders. Only the 500 bamboo ninjas were willing to believe him without reservation and obey his command, even if he was preparing to rebel. This is the power of blood. Within each major clan, the orders of the upper level of the village can only be ranked second, and the first is the order of the clan leader. Similarly, for each ninja village, the major clans in the village are also a major concern for the top leaders. Because this overly concentrated clan power will split the rule of the village and form a country within a country and a village within a village. Therefore, since the establishment of each ninja village, the rulers of all villages have been trying to digest the power of the clan, completely integrate them into the village, and eliminate the boundaries between clans. Among them, the most typical and successful example is the Senju clan of Konoha. Since the establishment of Konoha village, the clan leader of the Senju clan, Senju Hashirama, has consciously begun to imitate the clan concept of the Senju clan, encouraging clan members to intermarry with other villagers and integrate the blood of the Senju clan into the village. To this day, the Senju clan, apart from Tsunade, the granddaughter of Hashirama Senju, has no official clan members. Hashirama Senju completed the transition and integration of the clan in the village, but such an example also made other clans feel sympathetic. Because of constant intermarriage with outsiders, the blood of the clan naturally became thinner and thinner. The big clans in the ninja world generally have bloodline limits or other ability advantages derived from their bloodline. It is precisely because of this bloodline advantage that surpasses ordinary people that these big clans can last for a long time and become famous. Conversely, in order to maintain their own bloodline advantages, or in other words, in order to obtain the ability advantage that surpasses ordinary people, the major races have to keep their bloodlines pure and limit intermarriage with outsiders. This is the root of the birth of the clan cohesion force that is derived from ability and bloodline, and exceeds the village, and it is also the root of the birth of a clan. As long as someone is unwilling to let his descendants give up that bloodline advantage, then he will have to hold together with other people with the same bloodline, in order to maintain the purity of his bloodline. This is something that the village cannot give, and it is also the root cause of the conflict between the village and the tribe. Let's ask, if you can stand at a higher starting point than others, who would be willing to lower their roots and be lost in the crowd? This is bound to be a headache. Not long after, Taketori Shinsuke passed Rokusawa's order to every tribe member, and all the Taketori ninjas gathered towards Rokusawa's location. There were many foreign ninjas in the camp who smelled a strange breath, but they didn't dare to ask too much, and just stood aside and watched from a distance. They were very curious about what this group of Taketori ninjas were suddenly going to do. However, there were also more alert Miss ninjas who reported to Terumi Mei. My lord, the Taketori clan suddenly gathered together. I don't know what they want to do. The messenger knelt in front of Terumi Mei. Looking at the watch next to him, Terumi Mei said calmly, the time for the next round of siege is coming soon. They should be preparing for the next battle. But, the messenger was still a little uneasy. After all, the Taketori clan had a dangerous record of rebellion in the previous life. At this special time, it was difficult for him to have complete trust in the Taketori clan. Don't worry, with the ninja army behind them, no matter what they want to do, it's meaningless. Terumi Mei smiled and comforted. Yes, I'm sorry for disturbing you. The messenger breathed a sigh of relief, and then slowly withdrew from the command tent. At the same time, after ordering Taketori Shinsuke to set up a barrier to isolate the investigation, Liuze said seriously to many clansmen, everyone, we will face a dangerous battle next. And before the battle, I have something to tell everyone. Everyone nodded, thinking that he was talking about the upcoming siege. However, the next words completely exploded in the crowd. Liuze continued, when it's 9 o'clock, I will order the first column and the second column to attack together. But the people participating in the attack are not including you. You must continue to stay by my side, and no one can go out without my order. Why is that, Deputy Liuze? Someone asked in confusion. Because I have a new plan, and I need your help to implement it. Liuze said ambiguously. New plan? That's fine too. Everyone nodded and didn't ask further. They had absolute trust in the acting clan leader. If he said to go east, then they went east. If he said to go west, then they went west. But before that, I hope you can keep it a secret and not reveal this news to anyone. Liuze urged again. This move was mainly to make the scene more realistic. If other mist ninjas knew about it, it would definitely be very troublesome. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, as scheduled. No problem. The Taketori ninjas responded in unison. Well, it's almost time, let's get ready. After looking at the hands on the watch, Ryuza winked at Taketori Shinsuke. Taketori Shinsuke understood, and immediately ordered someone to open the barrier. Then, Ryuza instructed him, Shinsuke Jonin, please notify the first column to gather around me, and prepare to start the second round of siege. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then passed the order to others to assign. Soon, the ninjas of the first column who received the notice gathered. Taking this opportunity, Ryuza found the captain of the second column. He was a middle-aged male jonin named Yamashita Osamu. He was very powerful, and was said to have defeated all the jonins in the second column. No one in the whole team was dissatisfied. Is there anything wrong with the Taketori agent? Yamashita Osamu looked at Ryuza in surprise. In fact, he had no intersection with this bamboo cutter's deputy, let alone any friendship, so he couldn't figure out why this person came to him at this time. Ryuza smiled and replied, Osamu Jonin should know that I led the first column to participate in the first round of siege, but the casualties were heavy, exceeding 1/5 of the total number of people. So, in this second round of siege, I want to discuss with Osamu Jonin whether we can let the second column go ahead for a while, and the first column will go later, so as to reduce our pressure a little. Hearing this, Yamashita Osamu hesitated. He also knew the casualties of the first column. The direct death toll alone exceeded 200 people, and the number of injured was countless. Almost everyone was injured. At this moment, only a few hours had passed, and the first column was naturally far from recovering, and was in a very bad state. If it faced the enemy's attack in this state, I'm afraid that the casualties after the war would be even more serious. But everyone has a selfish heart. If the second column is allowed to go first, it means that the second column will be the first to attract most of the firepower, which greatly increases the danger. Considering this, he was reluctant to agree. Seeing this, Ryuza hurriedly added, don't worry, Lady Terumi Mei asked us to attack the city together, so I will not let you bear too much pressure alone. My first column will not be too late, just 5 seconds later than you. The speed of ninjas is very fast, especially when sprinting at full speed. 5 seconds is enough for the two teams to open up a considerable distance. Well, okay. After thinking for a moment, Yamashita Osamu reluctantly agreed to this request. The distance of 5 seconds is still within his acceptable range. Thank you. Bidding farewell to the captain of the second column, Ryuza returned to his team. In fact, for his next plan, the discussion with Yamashita Osamu just now was completely meaningless, because their actions would completely break this situation, making such an agreement impossible or meaningless to implement. However, he had to act in full. Before the real action, he wanted everyone to think that he was making arrangements for the next siege. After hearing about his discussion with Yamashita Osamu, the other Miss Ninjas who were originally concerned about his sudden call for the bamboo cutter ninjas gradually dispelled their doubts. Everything was moving in a good direction. Everyone was united and confident, as if the next round of attack would be able to completely break through the strong city in front of them. Time passed by, and it was almost 9 o'clock. The earth was dark at this time, with only some faint starlight and the lights of the camp allowing people to barely see things. Although their vision was not very good, the enemy was the same, which made it easier for them to avoid the enemy's long-range attacks. Second column, attack. Then, Ryuza heard a roar from not far away. The originally gathered second column rushed out of the camp like a flood, rushing towards the brightly lit Cape City in the distance. Ryuza also began to count silently in his mind. 10, 9, 8, 1 at this moment, Ryuza immediately issued an attack order. First column, attack. Hearing this, many ninjas of the first column, who had been unable to hold back, rushed out immediately and quickly chased the second column, that had already set out in front. At this time, many mist ninjas suddenly discovered that many bamboo cutter ninjas, led by Ryuze, stood still, like bridge piers in a torrent, and did not waver at all despite the flood. But the order to start the siege had already been given, and they did not think deeply about it, just thinking that Ryuze and his men wanted to avoid danger and wait until the end to set out. Soon, the mist ninjas of the second column, who were at the forefront, entered the attack range of the chakra cannon on Cape Castle. The rebel forces did not hesitate and immediately activated the chakra cannon for a super long range attack. Boom. Accompanied by bursts of deafening roars, the light produced by the explosions bloomed on the ground, illuminating the originally dim earth a lot. However, the price of illuminating the earth was the lives of countless mist ninjas on the siege side. Seeing that the first and second columns had already left the camp to launch the attack, the bamboo cutter ninjas led by Ryuze were still standing there motionless, and the mist ninjas who remained in the camp could not help but become suspicious. Even the brave mist ninjas walked over here. "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you still standing here motionless?" the mist ninja shouted from a distance. Ryuze ignored him, just turned his head to look at the many tribesmen around him, and asked with a smile, "Do you believe me?" "Of course I believe." Everyone nodded. "But, it's already this time, sir. Are you not going to let us attack?" someone asked curiously. Not only outsiders are curious, but even the group of people involved are curious about what their acting clan leader wants to do. "We won't attack the city." Ryuze shook his head. "Not attacking the city? Then what are you going to do by leaving us here?" Everyone was confused. "I want you to help me capture Meitarumi alive." Ryuze put away his smile and said to everyone with a serious face, "What?" Hearing this order suddenly, the bamboo cutter ninjas were stunned. This answer was completely beyond their imagination. At this time, the brave mist ninja also walked to the periphery of the bamboo cutter ninjas who were gathering. He also heard this terrifying order and was even stunned on the spot. Seeing this, Ryuze immediately used the instant body technique to rush out of the crowd, came to the man, and stretched out his hand to grab the other's neck. The mist ninja who finally came to his senses was terrified. He originally had the strength of a jonin, but because of his loss of consciousness just now, he was caught off guard and Ryuze caught his vitals at the first sight. If he made any unusual movements at this moment, he had no doubt that the bamboo cutter deputy in front of him would directly use the bone spur to pierce his fragile neck. Chapter 198, The Bamboo Cutter Rebellion. Go. After throwing the jonin he had restrained away, Ryuze gave the order to attack and added a sentence. "Don't kill anyone, just capture Meitarumi alive." Seeing this, the bamboo cutter ninjas were confused, but they still chose to execute the order. Fortunately, the agent only asked them to capture Meitarumi alive, and didn't ask them to kill anyone. Otherwise, facing the familiar companions in the camp, they really didn't know how to deal with them. "Kill!" the bamboo cutter ninjas roared together, and then rushed forward. The surrounding mist ninjas who were curious to see what the bamboo cutter clan wanted to do were completely unlucky. They didn't expect the bamboo cutter clan to rebel at this time, and they were caught off guard immediately, just like a shark suddenly rushed into a leisurely school of fish, scaring everyone and instinctively starting to flee in panic. However, there were still a small number of more alert mist ninjas who reacted in time and launched a counterattack against the bamboo cutter ninjas. Unfortunately, such people are only a minority after all. Facing the nearly 500 bamboo ninjas working together, their resistance was like an ant trying to shake a tree, and it had no effect at all. They were easily blocked by the armor on the bamboo ninjas. Seeing that, in just a few breaths, the group of mist ninjas who were watching outside were killed by the bamboo ninjas in one fell swoop, and continued to run towards the command tent of Terumi Mei. Until then, everyone in the camp finally woke up. Damn it. The bamboo ninjas have rebelled. Stop them. The mist ninjas, who had just been shocked, were ashamed and angry, and immediately launched a fierce counterattack. In the face of this offensive of more than hundreds of people, the speed of the bamboo ninjas' advance could not help but slow down. Fortunately, with the protection of the rebellious armor, they were not in danger of their lives for the time being. "It's not good, Master Terumi Mei. The bamboo ninjas have rebelled." The mist ninjas immediately came to Terumi Mei to report the news. "Rebellion? Why are they rebelling? Do you know?" Meditarumi asked calmly, sitting behind a simple desk, as if she had not heard the shouting and killing outside at all. I don't know for now. I only know that they rebelled for no reason and claimed to capture you alive. The visitor said nervously with his head down. In that case, let's capture them alive. Meditarumi looked calm and said calmly, pass the order down. Capture them alive for me. I want to ask why they rebel. The visitor looked up in surprise and was extremely confused about Meditarumi's handling. But feeling the other party's confidence as stable as a mountain, he put aside his uneasiness and chose to believe their leader. Yes. After responding, the messenger quickly left the command tent. At the same time, the rebel forces who had been watching the reformist camp on the city wall soon noticed the turmoil caused by the Taketori clan. Well done. The chief of the Snow clan looked at Zuaya with appreciation. All of this was planned by you all. I'm just an executor. Zuya bowed his head humbly. Don't be modest, this is indeed your contribution. The Snow clan leader waved his hand and said, not wanting to listen to them flattering each other anymore, Shenong interrupted and said, since the Taketori clan has already taken action, we can also attack. If we can take this opportunity to defeat the Kirigakure reformists in one fell swoop, the remaining conservatives and neutrals will definitely retreat. This was their plan made early in the morning, to let the Taketori clan disrupt the rear of the reformists and make them unable to take care of themselves, and they can take advantage of the chaos to attack and severely damage the Kirigakure reformists or even annihilate them on the spot. And if the Kirigakure reformists are defeated by them, the remaining Kirigakure conservatives and neutrals will naturally be unable to do anything to them. You know, they have nearly 10,000 ninjas guarding the city. Although the quality is uneven, the number is enough to bluff. Coupled with the cooperation of the air ninja's chakra cannon and the advantage of the strong city, it is almost impossible for the conservatives and neutrals to break through their city defenses. If they wait until the reinforcement from Konoha and Kumogakure arrive, the result will be even worse. Therefore, this attack on the Kirigakure reformists will be the key to this war. Yes, it's time for us to start. The patriarch of the Wind Clan nodded. Then, several high-level officials reached a consensus and ordered the 2,000 elite ninjas who had been prepared to attack immediately and launched a counter-attack against the Kirigakure reformist ninjas who rushed forward. Shenong, the leader of the air ninjas, also joined the attack. He immediately mobilized all the air ninjas in the sky to block and harass the Kirigakure reformist ninjas in front. Suddenly, they found that the air ninjas who had been harassing them turned to the reformists. The conservatives and neutrals who were struggling to move forward under the bombardment were delighted. Although the lethality of the air ninjas is not very sufficient, if they are hit in the vitals, they are still in danger of life, especially since many unlucky people have died under the harassment attacks of those air ninjas. Now that they saw that all the air ninjas had left, they were naturally overjoyed. As for the reformists, who were being targeted by the air ninjas, they could not care so much. After all, they were also in competition with each other. At this time, seeing the rebel ninjas on the wall take the initiative to go out of the city to launch a counterattack, many reformist ninjas who launched the attack were confused. What is going on? Logically speaking, with the advantage of terrain and the powerful firepower suppression, the rebels had no need to take the risk of launching an active attack. They just needed to wait quietly for the siege party to come to the door to fight. Immediately afterwards, a fog ninja immediately discovered that a battle had occurred in the camp behind for some reason, and there was chaos. What? The news spread quickly, and in just 1 minute, all the ninjas in the first and second columns who were preparing to attack the city knew about this situation. What followed was great anxiety and quarrels. Some fog ninjas advocated returning for help, while others advocated continuing the attack, but no one could convince anyone, and the quarrel between the two sides could only intensify. Finally, it was the captain of the second column, Yamashita Osamu, who decisively ordered to continue the attack, which put an end to the quarrel. However, although the verbal quarrel stopped, everyone was still very worried about the situation in the rear. Once the heart was gone, the morale of the team was also scattered, and the team that had been advancing bravely could not help but slow down its advancement. As for the first column, due to Liu's absence, the remaining Miss Ninjas didn't know what to do. Some people continued to follow the second column, to prepare for the attack, while others immediately turned around and wanted to go back to the rear camp for support. With different opinions, the entire first column fell apart. It was at this time that the artillery bombardment that suppressed everyone's advance suddenly stopped, because the rebel forces led by Shinnon had rushed up under the cover of powerful artillery fire. Chapter 199. Entering the camp. Kill. The captain of the second column, Yamashita Shimu, did not hesitate and immediately led the charge. In an instant, the two ninja troops started a head-on fight on the ground. This was also the first time, since the beginning of this war, that the reformist ninjas had truly clashed with the rebel forces. Unfortunately, because of the matter in the rear camp, the reformist ninjas were distracted, while the rebels were well prepared and full of momentum. As soon as the two sides fought, the gap was revealed. The reformists were obviously unable to withstand the offensive of the rebel forces. In particular, Shenning, the leader of the air ninjas on the rebel side, used the body activation technique to recreate a young and strong body. The whole person was like a muscle monster, and he rushed into the battle with an unstoppable attitude. The surrounding fog ninjas wanted to step forward to stop him, but no one could match him. Every time he punched or kicked, the fog ninjas could not resist and fell down seriously injured, and some were even killed on the spot. Seeing that they were defeated in close combat, the mist ninja used ninjutsu to deal with it. However, the lethality of their ninjutsu on that muscle monster was really limited, and what was even more fatal was that the opponent had a terrible recovery ability. After finally gathering ninjutsu to severely injure him, he immediately recovered from his injuries and launched a counterattack with vigor. The reformist ninjas were terrified and dared not to resist. In this way, Shenning almost killed the reformist team with one blow. The elite troops of the rebels behind him followed closely and successfully penetrated the reformist team. Charge. Kill Terumi Mei. After gaining the advantage, Shenning seemed to have finally swept away the depression of being defeated by the reformists last time. He suddenly became heroic and pointed to the chaotic reformist camp in the distance and issued a final shout. This was also the ultimate goal of their active attack this time. Killing Terumi Mei, the reformists would naturally be finished. Hearing this, the rebel ninjas were immediately excited, and even their pace felt much lighter. They seemed to have seen victory just ahead, within reach. No, their target is Lady Terumi Mei. The many reformist ninjas present finally understood everything. At this point, they could no longer care about attacking the city, and immediately turned around and wanted to force this rebel army to stay. Unfortunately, for this plan, the rebel leaders deliberately mobilized elite ninjas to form such a team. Although there were only 2,000 people, the strength of each of them was not less than that of a Chunin. In addition, they had already penetrated the array of the reformists and immediately rushed towards the reformist camp in the distance like a wild horse. Although the reformist ninjas wanted to stop them, they realized it too late. They could only chase after them and rack their brains to stop the rebel army in front. But no matter how they provoked and insulted them from behind, the rebels did not turn back at all and just rushed forward with all their might, and they were getting closer and closer to the reformist camp. At this time, in the camp, after the initial chaos, the other mist ninjas quickly adjusted their mentality and reorganized the defense lines. Liu's group went from being unstoppable to struggling. Logically speaking, there were only the third column in the camp, plus the other scattered ninjas, which were only more than 1,000 people. It was impossible to stop the bamboo cutter ninjas who were all equipped with the rebellion armor. After all, Liu's group also had nearly 500 people, and the difference in the number of people on both sides was not big. With the powerful defensive ability of the rebellion armor, they were fully capable of fighting one against many. However, Liu had given an order early in the morning, asking all the tribesmen not to kill them, which made everyone extremely restrained and timid. Fortunately, their opponents seemed to have received some orders, and did not kill them either, so the situation between the two sides was a bit stalemate. Everyone of the Taketori clan, although I don't know why you suddenly rebelled, but Lady Terumi Mei has ordered that, as long as you surrender, you will be treated leniently. The mist ninja who had the order shouted loudly from a distance. Don't waste your breath. If you have the ability, speak with strength. Taketori Jonin blocked the enemy's attack, and then snorted in that direction with disdain. Arrogant. Feeling ignored, the Miss Ninja who had just been forced back by him was furious. He took the opportunity to step back a few steps and immediately used his ultimate move. Wind style, vacuum wave. After taking a deep breath, he suddenly exhaled, spitting out a condensed beam of sharp wind blades towards the Taketori Jonin. This highly condensed wind style ninjutsu has great lethality, but because of Terumi Mena's order, he has never dared to use it. Now that he has been ignored, he can no longer hold back. Come on. Sensing the dangerous and sharp aura, the Taketori Jonin did not dodge, but stood there and let the wind blade hit him. Swish. He suddenly felt an invisible sword falling on him, which made him slide backwards, leaving only 2 deep marks on the ground. When the power of the wind escape ninjutsu was exhausted, he finally stabilized his heels, and then took a closer look at his body, only to see that the wind blade had left a conspicuous scratch on his armor. As expected of a wind escape known for its sharpness, it can actually leave such a scratch on the rebellion armor. He was secretly surprised. Facing the complete rebellion armor, escape techniques that are not good at attacking, such as water escape and earth escape, can hardly leave marks on their armor. It is really not easy for wind escape to leave a mark. However, seeing this result, his opponent was unwilling to believe his eyes. It was really frightening that the wind style ninjutsu that he had used with all his strength and which had extremely lethal power only left a scratch on that set of armor. But before they could have the next round of confrontation, a burst of shouting and killing suddenly came from outside the camp. Then, violent battle fluctuations followed. It was not until then that the two sides fighting in the camp realized that the rebel forces had taken the initiative to attack and had already killed them. Because they were focusing on dealing with the Taketori clan, many Miss Ninjas were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the enemy. They saw the enemy rushing through the fence, entering the camp, and fighting with them. Seeing this, Ryuzen immediately stepped back a few steps, wanting to withdraw from the battle. But his opponent naturally did not intend to let him do as he wished, and immediately accelerated and rushed up, trying to force him to stay. However, Taketori Shinsuke, who was standing next to him, saw this and immediately repelled his opponent with a blow, and then accelerated to rush over, and blocked Ryuzen in time. Ding. A kunai stabbed into Taketori Shinsuke's armor, but it did not penetrate. Instead, it made its owner's palm numb. Chapter 200. Fighting Shenron again. Seeing this, the Miss Ninja frowned, but did not continue to chase. He just took 2 steps back, and took a defensive posture. At present, the Bamboo Clan rebelled, and the rebel forces took advantage of the situation. He had to be careful, otherwise his life would be in danger. However, Ryuzen did not pay any more attention to him. Instead, after getting rid of the battle, he rushed towards the rebel forces that were rushing in from the rear. He saw Shenron, who was rushing in the front, at a glance. The muscular body was too eye-catching to be ignored. "Where are the people you promised to return to me?" Ryuzen asked loudly from a distance. Huh. Shenron stopped and recognized Ryuzen's identity after knocking away a Miss Ninja who rushed over. He laughed and said, "What a naive guy. You still want people. I really don't know how you got the identity of the acting clan leader. It's already this time, and you still want to ask us for people. You should think about whether you can survive tonight." After that, he rushed towards Ryuzen with a sneer. That was the acting patriarch of the Bamboo Cutter clan. If he killed this guy, the entire Bamboo Cutter clan would be in chaos and collapse without a fight. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to deal with these guys in armor. You know, he has a superhuman strength that is far beyond that of ordinary people, and he can easily kill people with a punch or a kick. But facing the bone armor of the Bamboo Cutter clan, his brute force, which he was proud of, could not destroy it directly, which was incredible. Killing Bamboo Cutter Lius was the most convenient way he could think of to solve the problem of the Bamboo Cutter clan. "So you didn't plan to return the person to me from the beginning?" Hearing Shenron's words, Lius couldn't help but sigh. The nearby ninjas were confused and didn't know what the two were talking about, but they could still hear that the Bamboo Cutter agent should have reached some kind of deal or tacit understanding with the rebel forces, so there was a sudden rebellion of the Bamboo Cutter clan. But unfortunately, the Bamboo Cutter agent was fooled by the rebel forces. However, they did not know that the old chief of the bamboo cutter was secretly rescued by the rescue team sent by Liuzen earlier and was hiding in Cape City to avoid being hunted down. Even if the rebel forces wanted to hand him over, they could not. But then again, because of the special identity of the old chief of the bamboo cutter, even if he had not been rescued, the rebel forces would not hand him over to Liuzen. After all, how could such a useful chess piece only be used once? As Liuzen's side, they had no intention of handing him over from the beginning. Everything was just a trick. However, the old chief had a special identity, and Liuzen could not stand by and watch him die. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, he had to try it. Therefore, in order to give an explanation to the tribe members and to strangle their last hope, Liuzen had to pretend to be submissive and agreed to this cooperation with the rebels. Now that such a result has been obtained, it will be acceptable for him to tell the tribe members to give up the old chief in the future. At this time, the rebel forces that had entered the reformist camp also vaguely discovered that something was wrong. The battle between the bamboo cutter clan and the reformists was not as fierce as they had imagined. Instead, they seemed to have some reservations. They suddenly rushed into the battlefield and were immediately blocked by a strong resistance, which increased the pressure. In that case, don't blame me. All of you go to hell. Liuzen clenched his fists, and his joints immediately made a crisp sound. Then he loudly ordered his fellow clansmen, all ninjas of the bamboo cutter clan, listen to my order, kill all these rebels. Don't leave any alive. Hearing this, many ninjas present were surprised. They didn't expect that in such a chaotic situation, the bamboo cutter clan would dare to abandon the enemy in front of them and turn their spearheads against the rebel forces that had recently joined the battlefield. Sir, are you sure this won't make us vulnerable? A senior ninja asked loudly while fighting. Liuzen was about to answer when a sturdy figure came in front of him and hit him with a fist the size of a sandbag. That was Shenning. Feeling the fierce aura of the opponent, Liuzen completely gave up the idea of blocking it. He just took a wrong step and turned to the right side of Shenning. Boom. The punch fell, although it missed, but the powerful force shook the air and burst out a crisp sound. If this punch hits, even with the protection of the rebellious armor, I'm afraid I will be seriously injured. Liuzen couldn't help but feel nervous and extremely nervous. The opponent's strength is too strong, and his physique is much worse than that of an adult ninja. Even if the armor can resist most of the damage, the remaining strength is enough for him to drink a pot. However, even at this dangerous moment, he did not forget to fight back and casually slapped Shenning's waist. At the moment of landing, he silently mobilized chakra to activate the corpse bone vein, and a bone spur was born from the palm of his hand. Kai. He only felt a strong resistance, and then he pierced the bone spur into Shenning's flesh with difficulty. But because the opponent's muscles were too tight, and he deliberately contracted his muscles to clamp his bone spur, the bone spur on his palm could not penetrate any further. After it penetrated 3 inches. Die. Shenning's reaction was also very fast, and he immediately swung his right elbow to the side. Perhaps because he was too big, his body movements were not as flexible as those of a normal body, and his movements were slightly sluggish. Not good. Liu's child's hole shrank, and he immediately used the control ability of the corpse bone vein to cut off the bone spur, and then retreated. But at such a close distance, with the opponent's reaction speed, even a slight delay was not something he could avoid. Bang! There was only a muffled sound, and Shenning's right elbow hit Liu's chest armor. In an instant, a terrifying force spread on the chest armor, and the armor that had been indestructible for hundreds of battles also had visible cracks. Ah, Liu groaned, and the whole person flew backwards. Knowing that the elbow was not enough to kill him, Shenning immediately prepared to chase him, but Taketori Shinsuke blocked his way first. This road is blocked, let me play with you. Taketori Shinsuke used bones to shape a short spear, and then went straight to Shenning. You overestimate your ability. Seeing that the pursuit was hopeless, Shenning could only snort and change his opponent. In an instant, the two of them started a head-on confrontation with superb physical skills. However, Shenning mainly relied on powerful strength to defeat the enemy, and it was inevitable that he was lacking in skills. When fighting ordinary people, the powerful strength can allow him to defeat the enemy with one blow, thus covering up the shortcomings in skills. But when fighting against the famous physical skills of the Taketori clan, this gap was revealed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.